everyone, and welcome to the second annual First Star Logistics Draft Party, live from the brand new First Star Logistics studio, and a beautiful studio it is. The building is unbelievable. We're overlooking the garage opening patio beyond us, and we would love to have you join us. Unfortunately, the building's not quite ready yet, but we are going to have party after party that you're going to be a part of. But you're going to be a part of the NFL Draft Party tonight. Hello, everyone. I'm Brad Johansen. Happy to have you with us live streaming. And this new space is going to be outstanding, and we're going to fill it tonight for you, and we want you to be a part of the broadcast. It isn't just any live stream. We're going to be interactive tonight. Want you to be a part of it. We've got giveaways all night long throughout the night. You interact with us. We understand you know this already because we're over 50 comments before the show has even begun, and we're thrilled to have you in here. All thanks to First Star Logistics. All right, our first giveaway. We're going to start right now. Now, to take part, you need to listen. Do active listening tonight, folks. This is important. You must follow the comments and do hashtag all caps. This is just for the first giveaway. Bengals Draft Party. It's all one word. Use the hashtag. It will change throughout the night. So as the giveaways go on, we will have different hashtags hanging with us. Let me introduce our esteemed panel joining us one more time. Now, I'm sorry, Malik, but I have to start in the middle. I got to start in the middle because he is the cornerstone of Bengals coverage and has been for decades. Dave Lapham played on the offensive line from 74 to 83, and then following his Bengals career, it's his Bengals career. He's been in the booth for decades upon decades, and he is the source for Bengals fans all around the country. He was my partner in the booth for a decade, now with Dan Horde. Dave is the host of In the Trenches podcast, presented by First Star Logistics. Dave, it's always good to be back with you, my friend.
It's great to see you, Brad. And, I'm fortunate enough, talk about living a dream, to be able to play 10 years with the Bengals in the National Football League and caught a couple of seasons in the USFL, so 12 as a player, and just finished year number 38 in the broadcast booth. So
Goodness
50 years, including playing and broadcasting. And if I can get a couple more in, maybe it'll be 50 years with the Bengals alone. That might be my final part of the dream.
Might be the last chapter. Don't say it yet. Don't say it yet. Longevity, baby. You got it. All right. To my left, Malik Wright, who is the CEO of TWSN, host of the Sitdown, The Right Bet, State of the Jungle, presented by First Star Logistics. Malik focusing on the Cincinnati Bengals, podcasts and social media. Always good to be with you, my friend.
Always good, man. I'm excited to be back here for this live draft stream with you, Dave, Evan. Man, it's going to be great. It's going to be a great night. Bengals got 3 picks. Can't wait to see where they go.
He's jacked up. So is Evan McPhillips, who joins us now, co-host of the Sitdown of the State of the Jungle. Evan, with the expansive knowledge on the Bengals stats, mock NFL drafts. Evan Mack, how you feeling tonight?
Feeling great, man. Hopefully I can be like Money Mac and be tried and true with my shots here tonight. So we're going to do our best to be predictive and make sure we got all the good nuggets and all the stats that you guys enjoy and love.
And you see the Power Ranger in the corner. Oh, no, that's just behind him. Joe Goodberry with the Power Ranger masks behind him, analyzing, critiquing, writing about the Bengals for the last 10 years. Various work featured on major football media outlets. He is known for his mock drafts, player evaluations, film reviews. Joe Goodberry coming to us from his basement in Buffalo. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. We got another draft season culminating to day 2, probably my favorite day of the entire draft. This is where championships are made, and I think the Bengals got a good shot to add to this roster already.
Well, they have been on the cusp of championship for years now. Dave, take me to pick one. Why did they go with such a small guy
really?
On pick number 1?
I'll tell you, man, it's the land of the Giants. That's what it is at Paycor Stadium in that offensive line room. Orlando Brown was down there today visiting with Mims and just, saying that welcome to the team and can't wait to have you as part of the offensive line. Orlando Brown is now the 3rd smallest offensive lineman. He's got 2 guys, the 3rd biggest, I should say. He's got 2 guys bigger than him. I mean, Brown at the right tackle position is 6'8", 370, and Mims pushing 6'8", 340 pounds. And I mean, the thing about him, saw him down there earlier today, he's got abs. I mean, you can see abs on the dude. I mean, it's amazing how big and long he is. I mean, 7 foot plus wingspan, 36-inch arms, 11 and a half inches between the tip of his pinky and the tip of his thumb. He can palm a ruler, for crying out loud. I mean, this guy is just big everywhere. And the thing is, he's got some flexion in his knees and ankle. He's not a stiff now. He runs like sub 5 140. I asked him what other sports he played basketball, put the shot through the discus. I mean, this guy has athletic ability, and I think the biggest reason that he's with the Bengals, of course, is that size, but he might have as much upside. His ceiling might be higher than any player, not just any offensive lineman or any tackle, any player in the National Football League. And all I can say is, for people that are worried about, okay, well, he hasn't had many snaps, 8 games, it didn't start all of those 8 games, but he played against great competition the games he started. And the other thing, at practice, every single day at Georgia, there were like 35 guys from the defense drafted. 5 of them were 5 first-round offensive linemen that he went against in practice every day. He said practice it was the hardest part of the week. Games were easy. Games were a vacation. And I just think, you look at Anthony Munoz as the guy.
There you go.
And Anthony, his senior year, or not his senior year, last year he played at USC before declaring for the draft. Opener blows out his ACL, doesn't redshirt, rehabs, plays against Ohio State, dominates a good Ohio State defense and a good opponent. Forrest Gregg goes out to USC based on Jim McNally's recommendation, the offensive line coach, to work out Anthony Munoz personally. Rushes as a defensive end. Anthony jams him. Forrest goes right to the ground. Anthony reaches down with that big old mucker, and Forrest reaches up and he's like, he comes back, and I said, what did you see? He said, this guy, I don't know why people have him off their board. We're drafting him. I mean, that's the biggest hand I ever felt. That was the most powerful hit in the chest I ever took. Anthony Munoz goes in the third pick in the entire draft to the Cincinnati Bengals, and the football gods, the injury gods left him alone, and hopefully that'll happen for Mims too.
All right, Evan, your take on Mims.
I think Dave's talked a lot about what his size and his measurables are like, and I know Joe and some others are going to touch on the film and the technique aspect, but what I really want to focus on is the unfair injury label, an injury-prone label that he gets. So one hypocrisy that I see is constantly when a guy is not getting enough snaps, he goes into the transfer portal, right? Usually we chastise, we criticize and say, you need to compete. You can't be afraid of competition, playing with the best guys. And Mims did that. He considered the transfer portal, ended up backing out of it, saying, I want to stay, I want to compete. Well, this is part of that other end of that, right? If you stay compete, you might only be there for 1 year. And unfortunately, he got rolled up on, which again is not any fault of his own. You put a 300-pound man into your ankle, it's probably going to bend the wrong way, right? So I've heard so much of these are like 3 separate injuries, and now we're really worried about it. Whereas he had ankle surgery and then came back 6 to 8 weeks later in November, right? And even with regular high ankle sprains, it takes 6 to 8 weeks to heal. And then you still have more weeks after that where you have a high risk for re-injury. This guy came back, played through injury probably sooner than he should have, which again is another thing that we laud, right? We praise, we say, oh, fight for your team, right? Going to the playoffs. He did that. And again, this is a consequence of that. But then one thing I see with tightrope surgeries, right? Cooper Kupp, Amari Cooper, Zach Moss, Ben Skowronek, Tua Tagovailoa, all had tightrope procedures. And then within the year following had a hamstring strain. And this is large anecdotal evidence that supports that hamstring strains often follow this. And that could be because muscular imbalance, because you didn't rehab all the way through, or your strength was not quite where it needed to be to support the kind of explosion of weight you're putting on this. So I see this more as small complications and setbacks that all occurred because of the initial surgery, as opposed to one injury-prone kind of multiple injuries. I see it as one encompassing injury, and clearly the medical staff for the Bengals has cleared him. And I think in this point, you trust the film, you trust the traits and the tools that you see, and you say, our medical team gave him a green flag. We're going to go ahead and take him. And I think you're better off for it.
All right, Joe, I'm going to get to you in a second. Malik, I want to bring you in. Dave, forgive me, because I know that, Malik, it was something that Dave said when Mims was picked that you said, I probably better pay attention to this?
Yeah, there were a lot of people out there when discussing the Marius Mims pick that were pretty upset about it. And I understand why people were upset. People were more so hoping that we saw more on film for Marius Mims. The discourse around Marius Mims was, okay, the Bengals haven't had the most success recently in developing offensive linemen. So why are we taking a chance on a guy that, has limited film out there, has dealt with injuries, although the injuries might not be as serious as people have made him out to be? I understand why everyone's holding their breath, but Dave brought me to the light. And Dave told me, he said, listen, Malik, this guy has the highest upside one of the highest upsides in the entire NFL draft. And, I think that this could be potentially a home run pick for the Bengals. One thing the Bengals did, and I don't think Marius Mims could have ended up in a better situation, he's backing up 2 tackles that resemble him.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 absolute beasts of humans, right? 6'8", 300+ pounds. I think Marius Mims could potentially be, the answer that the Bengals have been looking for quite some time.
Yeah, to back up that point, asked him about that earlier today. I said, how exciting is it for you to learn from 2 guys that have the exact same measurables almost as you, and they've succeeded? They're Super Bowl champions. He stayed at Georgia because he's a winner.
Right.
He wants to be with winning programs. I mean, that's more important to him than anything. He just wants to be part of a winning team, like you said, be part of a group. And now he's going to be working with the land of the Giants again, these 3 offensive tackles, and they can say, look, this is a strength. Use it. They're going to try to counter it with this. Make sure you do that. I mean, he's going to be trained not only by offensive line coach Frank Pollock, who's a 6'6" lineman himself in the National Football League for 9 years, but his teammates will be able to tell him, this is technique that works. Stay away from this. We have the same dimensions as you. We have history utilizing those dimensions to our advantage. That's all unbelievable information for a young guy like that. And that's the thing. He is young. He's got braces, for crying out loud. He may still grow another inch. I mean, this dude he's a pup. Yeah. He's not a full-grown dog yet.
Go ahead, Malik. You wanted to jump in.
Just jump in really quick. Sorry, Joe. There are some picks that just happened that flew off the board that does affect the Cincinnati Bengals draft.
All right, go.
Rook Aurora goes to the Falcons, defensive tackle that we were hoping maybe could be a potential fit for the Bengals. Tavondre Sweat is the pick for the Titans here. I'm shocked. This is a guy that people thought maybe were off the board of some teams, especially after the incident that just took place the month of the draft. This is big stuff. And, man, the defensive tackles are flying off the board here, man. Mm-hmm. Luckily, there are still some guys in the draft that we've talked about on various shows, whether it be in the trenches with Dave Lapham, State of the Jungle, Bengals on the Brain. We talked about a lot of these prospects here. But, man, I'm kind of shocked. I'm kind of flabbergasted a little bit that Tavondre Sweat just fell off the board as quickly as he did in the second round.
I think second round is high value. I know the Bengals didn't have him off their board. I think they were contemplating third round.
Okay.
Maybe particularly 97. But I thought, in their opinion, I gathered that second round was a little bit rich, but this dude is a freakazoid. I mean, that he'd be another behemoth monster. I mean, a manster. That's what they drafted.
Yeah.
Mims is a manster.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, there's a bunch of mansters, part man, part monster in this draft. It's unbelievable.
We got an AM Love Fest going on, Joe. Are you part of that Love Fest?
For Marius Mims?
Yeah.
Yeah, I am. I'm on the high side of that. I didn't think it was the home run because there's a lot of risk here. Number one, he hasn't played. He hasn't shown the ability to stay durable. I know that the injuries were freak injuries. Evan went over that, but to my end, on the positive side, I would say that a lot of people are maybe overcritical of the idea of drafting a developmental offensive lineman and comparing him wrongly to a Cedric Ogbuehi type of pick. I don't see that at all. I see Marius Mims as a much better prospect than Ogbuehi. I mean, we're talking about a much younger player. Mims is 21. Ogbuehi was 23 when he was drafted. Ogbuehi was coming off of a knee injury. He was about 306 pounds at the combine that year. I mean, Mims has the size and strength that Ogbuehi wishes he had. To me, this is the highest prospect the Bengals, or highest upside prospect the Bengals have drafted on the offensive line probably since Andrew Whitworth. So that was a long time ago. The guys they've drafted in the last few years have been, in my opinion, low upside players, whether that was Jonah Williams, who really didn't have the size or the athleticism. Billy Price didn't have that size, didn't have the athleticism. To spend a pick in the first round on a guy with this type of upside, it doesn't happen. So I understand exactly why they did it. If he would have played another year at Georgia and played the whole year and stayed healthy and showed any signs of progress, he's going top 10. And those guys typically do not make it to you at 18. The Bengals are probably saying, hey, we don't plan to even pick top 15 with Joe Burrow, right? So we're going to get a guy here that is probably never going to see even the back half of a first round ever where we expect to be picking. So you take Amarius Mims and you give him the upside or the chance to hit that upside by not throwing him into the fire right away, because they've done a good job in free agency and getting starters across their whole line. They don't have to put them in right away.
To your point, Joe, the Bengals felt like if he played in 8 more games this year, he would have been a top 10 pick based on the tape they saw, the guys that he went against. Plus, they film every practice. Watching him work in practice and talking to the coaches, I mean, they felt like this guy has top 10 abilities. And, obviously the injuries curtailed that. And, it's and the other thing about him, in my mind, the floor is always the tape. You look at the tape and everybody can evaluate tape in this group. The ceiling is character, and not just football character, overall character. And this guy, not only is he built bigger than Orlando Brown, he's very similar personality to Orlando Brown. I was very, very impressed with the type of guy he was, the patience that he showed. Sometimes, it's like you can tell if a guy is, full of himself, or whatever the case may be. This kid's the real deal. I mean, he's a home run. The other thing, Uber drivers can tell if a guy has flexibility or not, trying to get in and out of the backseat of the Uber. The Uber driver, when Mims got in, easily out. My point is, no wear and tear. He hasn't had the heck beat out of him. Anthony Munoz, when he recovered from the ACLs, no wear and tear. Every other joint is not pounded from years of college football. And, so there's always a silver lining. There's always a pro to every con.
All right. I want to do a reminder quick to everybody. We are doing a giveaway. We're doing it throughout the evening. Bengals Draft Party. You can throw these out here. Bengals Draft Party. All one word, all caps. Must use the hashtag. Active listening, folks. These are the hats we're giving away.
Follow directions.
We've got shirts. We've got jerseys. At the very end of this, we've got a prize that is going to kick you into the summer in a way that you never expected, in style. You're going to want to stay tuned. So right now, giving away hats. This one, I could pass them down, guys, but I don't think you want to model them right over the top. But
this bucket head can't model them. I know that.
We've got. So all caps, Bengals Draft Party. Use the hashtag. While we're doing this on this, guys, you let us into, okay, he may be a top 10 guy. Certainly next year he'd be a top 10 guy. Take me through the top 10. Who won in the top 10? Did you like any of it, since we ran quarterback wild in the beginning? And you can go beyond that. Did anybody else win with a pick in the top 10? Malik, I'll start with you.
The New York Football Giants didn't overthink it. The question marks were, would the Giants draft J.J. McCarthy? All the smoke you heard throughout the draft was the Giants were considering a move up for a quarterback. And, Daniel and I said, and we talked about it. We said, does J.J. McCarthy make sense for the New York Football Giants, or is he too similar to a Daniel Jones to see that much of an upgrade? But they didn't overthink it. They finally said, you know what, we got to get some weapons here in New York. And they went out and they drafted Malik Neighbors. So I thought it was a home run pick. I want to comment more about that, but Braden Fisk, another defensive tackle who, people were looking at for the Bengals, the Rams traded up just now and they just took him in the second round. Yeah. So when I say defensive tackles are flying off the board,
yeah, they are.
And why that's so important to the Cincinnati Bengals is because we literally say, hey, this defensive tackle class is, there are some guys there later in the second round until there's not guys later there. But we've seen Braden Fisk go, Tavondre Sweat go, Johnny Newton go. And wow. Yeah.
I think from a defensive tackle standpoint, the Bengals feel pretty good about their 3 techniques. Not saying that those guys wouldn't add to the equation, but I mean, the guy that is interesting to me is Sweat, because the Bengals, if he was still there in that third round, I think they would have addressed that defensive tackle with that guy at that particular. But that's the type of guy they're looking for. They're looking to add to the land of the Giants. They don't want the 6 foot, You know, they don't want the 6'3" technique. They want the 6'4" big old behemoth beast, you know, run stuff and dude. And you can get some of those big body guys after the second round. You know, there's no question. And I think, you know, the biggest thing that surprised me in the first 10 picks, Brad, they were all offensive. In fact, the first 14 picks in the draft, offensive football players.
Isn't that the first time we've ever seen that?
Yeah, that's a record.
Yeah.
The old record was 7. And, you know, so it wasn't until the 8th pick that year that an defensive guy was drafted. The 15th pick this year. It's crazy. And I do think that here in the second round, there'll probably be more offensive players taking the defensive players as well. I think there's going to be another 4 or 5 offensive linemen taken here in the second round. You know, there were 7 taken in the first round. I think, you know, there's going to be supply and demand. It's a passing league. So there's going to be over 40 corners drafted, over 40 wide receivers drafted, 25 offensive tackles alone are going to get drafted. I mean, and there's a big demand, but there's a huge supply at some of these key positions to address it as well. And it's going to be interesting. And again, these 3 picks are going to be eventual starters, immediate contributors in some way, shape, or form. 8 draft picks last year, they all made the team. They all had roles, whether it was special teams or starting roles offensively or defensively, or some sort of rotational role offensively or defensively. Am I saying 10 picks going to make it this year? No, I'm not saying that. But in the era of the salary cap, and you're paying big bucks to these guys, if you can put the ball on the bat for rookies and have that many on your roster, the economics say, hell of a job.
Evan, anything you want to contribute on that?
I think Dave kind of nailed it on the head there, talking about the surplus contract value that you get as an advantage from the rookie contracts. I really like what the Bears did. Obviously, it's easy to knock it out of the park with Caleb Williams, but I think pairing him with Rome Odunze is really good. I think that allows Keenan Allen to more comfortably slide into the slot and kind of take advantage of his abilities, as especially he gets to older age and can't quite stretch vertically as much. But I think Rome Odunze has a wide, varied route tree, great down the sideline, good catch radius. I really think the only thing is maybe that he has kind of the hands technique on the catches is not always perfect, where it can kind of allow space for the defenders to get in there. He could do a little bit better of active hands technique and kind of keeping it away from his body in that sense. And then maybe as a result of kind of the downfield target and the nature of downfield or boundary targets, he wasn't quite the outstanding yak guy. But I don't think that means that he doesn't have the ability based on his athletic testing. But I just really love that pairing, even though it feels pretty chalky based on what we heard pre-draft.
All right, Joe, I want to have you jump in here. Anything within the top 10 or what has been said about what's happened here on the defensive line here in day 2?
Yeah, already 4 defensive tackles gone in the first, 39. So 7 picks here in the second round. Johnny Newton is the one for me. I feel like we should spend some time. That's the guy a lot of Bengals fans wanted. He was number 9 overall on my board. I thought he was absolutely fantastic. I thought he was better than Byron Murphy. He didn't get the test. He had the Jones fracture on the foot and didn't get to do a lot of things, even up until his pro day. And it maybe caused him to slip a little bit. But that is a great pick at the top of round 2. I would have been, for the last 12 hours or so, I was saying, if the Bengals find a way to trade up and get a guy like that, I'm 100% behind them. Whatever picks it's required to go up and get a guy that I believe is a first-round talent at a position of need. That's not going to be there. Now the D-tackle run has happened. I think there's maybe one guy left, Chris Jenkins out of Michigan, that would make a lot of sense for the Bengals. More of a run defender, didn't get a lot of chance to be a pass rusher. His dad played for the Carolina Panthers. He's got the pedigree. I think he's got some pass rush upside if you get the opportunity to do it. But having just one guy really left on the board that you feel strong about in round 2 is not where you want to be for a position of need.
What do you think about Fisk?
Well, Fisk just went to the LA Rams.
Oh,
so,
he did?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and that's going to be their Aaron Donald replacement, kind of an undersized meatball, right? But he's a tough dude to block. He's a pest for offensive linemen.
What about McKinley Jackson out of A&M?
Yeah, I think he's more of a later round, mid-round guy. I know the Bengals had contact with him, the top 30 visit with him. He is a very inconsistent player. His upside flashes are really that you can see offensive linemen struggle to block him. But there are times where he doesn't get off the ball with any consistency, doesn't play with consistent leverage and motor. And I think that a lot of the tape you watch are just like, okay, come on, when's the next splash play? And then it's right around the corner every time for him. I think it's going to cause him to go in the mid-rounds.
All right, it's time. I gotta give something away. It's time to give away. So if you've done hashtag Bengals Draft Party, all caps, and you were good on your active listening, then you're in, and we're about to give it away. And our giveaway on the first gift
It's exciting.
is if there's a name on there, I got no chance.
Slim and none of
readers
left town.
today. Yeah.
Oh, here we go. We're spinning the wheel.
Oh.
We're spinning the wheel. Here we go. It is winner Green Beast 23. Congratulations, Green Beast 23. We will be in contact. And we're going to get the draw again. All right, let's spin the wheel. Green Beast, you are winner number 1. How many hats are we giving away? How many are we going to spin? We got 4 times. Okay, we're going to spin. Here's spin number 2. These are our hats.
Maybe we call Mims Orange Beast.
Jonathan Kimball, you are winner number 2. Congratulations. Spin the wheel. And here we go. Those who got in on hashtag Bengals Draft Party, all caps. Eric Lewis, you are winner number 3. Congratulations. And our winner number 4 of this is our first giveaway. Going to be doing this all night long, and the hashtags will change. So you got to pay attention. Our winner number 4 for a Bengals hat is Craig Locker. Congratulations. I like that name.
Appropriate. Locker, yeah. Everybody's got a new locker
That's
down
a
there.
first round name, man.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, Brad, while we're talking about winners, can I tell you about a team who's won in this draft so far?
Please do.
The Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles just got a guy that everybody was talking about potentially in the top 18 picks in Cooper DeJean. Or DeJean. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell. This is a spot where, the Eagles felt like they wanted to remake their cornerback room, and they've certainly done that. And they didn't have to go crazy for it, man. And these are guys that we were like, man, we can't believe that they're here on day 2. The Eagles, I guess the rich get richer. And I guess this is the philosophy you have to follow. The Joe Goodberry guide, and that's draft best player available. Don't overthink it, right? Kudos to the Eagles, though.
A little birdie, a friend of mine who's got a friend with the Philadelphia Eagles organization said that the Eagles reached out to the Bengals to trade back from number 22. And the Eagles didn't have enough capital to make it happen. And not that the Bengals were going to do it anyway. I think, at number 18, the Bengals moved back to number 22 where the Eagles were. Yeah. And the Eagles go up to 18. The Bengals wanted to stay there. And it happened fairly early, in the first round. But so it's interesting. That's the thing you don't know. You don't know how many teams reached out to each other, how many discussions are had, trading up, trading down. I bet if the league had, a private room where all they were doing, they had 32 screens and monitoring who's calling who for picks, that would be one hell of a draft show right there. That would entertain the world right there. No
you know what I find interesting about the Eagles picks, Malik, and everybody who's especially congratulating them, and rightly so, is nobody's saying that the Eagles corners are not going to play 800 snaps the first year, so they're wasted picks when you got Darius Slay and James Bradbury. Yeah. Everyone's saying, hey, you let the value fall to you and you took really good players. Yeah. I don't hear a lot of people going, man, they're only going to play 400 or 500 snaps for you. That's Bengals, a waste. Huh? I don't know. It's interesting to me.
Talking about corners, another guy that we talked about just went off the board.
The Kool-Aid.
McKinstry goes to the Saints. The Saints move up and they get
Joe, you're hurting over that. I just saw you. What are you shaking your head for?
There's 3 first-round graded guys that had left coming into day 2, right? Johnny Newton, Cooper DeJean, and Kool-Aid and McKinstry. And I think you get to pick 41 here. Now, maybe the Bengals are trying, but I would be moving heaven and earth to try and go up and get a corner if that was a first-round guy left, because I don't think the Bengals have the depth there right now. And I understand Dax Hill may be playing more corner. I don't think he's a boundary corner. I think they could use a guy like McKinstry.
So Joe, would you have given up one of today's picks? You said move up at all costs in the second round. Would you have given up one of today's picks where you have a potential, eventual starter and a big contributor? You would give up that kind of capital to move up however many spots it took in the second round?
Yeah, so to get up into the 35 to 33 range would have taken you probably pick 80 based on the trade value chart. Anything higher than that into the 40 range would probably be 97. You might get away with pick 41, 42 for the 115 in the 4th round. So I would have been okay with that to get a first round talented guy.
I think this draft, what I'm about to say is going to make Dave smile a little bit. Dave, I think with the Bengals pick, man, I am eyeing interior offensive line here, man. I am trying to get Jackson Power Johnson still on the board. You got guys like I'm really high on Cooper Beebe still on the board. That being said, the Texans just drafted Kamari Lassiter as well. So the run on corners are happening right
Yep,
now.
It went quick.
We're seeing these corners fly off the board. So
Well, only 3 went in the first round.
Yeah.
Only 3 corners, and and the thing we're talking about is all these guys that you're talking about had first round grades here into the second round. Just recently, there aren't even 16 first round graded players for a draft. There aren't even 20 first round graded players for a draft. This draft, you had not only 32 first round graded players, you had into the second round. So it talks about, not only is the draft deep overall, but it's deep at the top. It's deep at multiple positions. That's why, to me, I'm not in a panic. I still think there's going to be really good corners, really good defensive tackles available, when the Bengals pick, not only in the second round, but the third round. I guess I might be biased being a third round pick myself, but there's going to be players that can impact the football team that have been drafted in that round.
This is one of the questions that I have when you guys have talked about the depth of this draft, how much talent there is. Is there a tendency, and you say, let's sit back, let's be patient, let's not worry about it because there's so much talent. When there is that much talent, are there teams out there who say, I've got to get this guy? Do you become overzealous during this time when there is this much talent within the draft? I'll ask you first, Evan.
Yeah, that's a fallacy and a trap that a lot of people fall into, right? And there's a degree of humility that we all have to have, right? Because we all feel so certain about what these players are and what they could be, right? To where we have a higher degree of certainty that we probably shouldn't. The same way that in scouting departments, people can watch the same film and disagree about a prospect, right? And so when we look at this, especially individual drafts, right? The 2012 Seahawks, the 2017 Saints, when you think about these teams that knocked it out of the park in one draft, the following year, they didn't do as well. They had a lot of whiffs, and it really comes down to you do the best you can with the information you have available. But when you're going to give up multiple assets, it's hard for one player to equal the value that you could get from multiple second or third rounders. And I think that's really where it comes to for a lot of teams, where there's so few that are truly in a scenario where they're one guy away, right?
A lot of people that I've talked to around the league, I mean, I get the impression that from pick 70 to pick 150, there's not a big disparity. It's not like, oh my God, just falling off the cliff. Once you get past 100, from 70 to 150, that's a pretty darn good range. And so if they're all that closely, evaluated by teams, and the boards are like slightly different, all it takes is one team to like you, and you can have a life-changing experience because one team said, "You're my guy," because your abilities fit our schematic. Your talents and our scheme is the perfect marriage. Other teams say, oh, hell no, I'm not taking that guy because of what they run systematically. And there has to be fits that way. A lot of times that will, juxtaposition teams' boards big time. I mean, it makes sense. You don't want to put a square peg in a round hole. I mean, you got to have a fit. And then also, a guy in college may have had a terrible position coach, or may have been recruited to a scheme that doesn't fit his talents in college. And then you go watch the kid and you say, man, and then you put the tape on, it doesn't match. Why doesn't it match? And then you realize there's some extenuating circumstances here. Get him out of that and put him in something that's a better scenario for him. And that's all. That's not black and I mean, that's like very gray area, I mean, that's a big massage that goes on when you make those kind of decisions. And all it is one team has to make that kind of decision.
All right, let's do some prep real quick, just because we are on pick 43, going to pick 44. Bengals pick at 49. It's time to talk. Do we have enough knowledge at this point from 43 to 49?
I don't even know who they are. Who are they? What are the names?
So I'll tell you right now, Max Melton just went off the board to the Arizona Cardinals. So this run that
I had him in the third round.
So you see these teams these guys are drafting their guys. And, I think I see there's a lot of panic in the comment section right now. Guys, we see you, right? People are saying, oh, the Bengals are messing it up, yada, yada, yada. I wouldn't listen. The run on the cornerbacks that we are seeing right now, it's fine. Listen, guys, you still have your pick of the litter of this offensive line class. The best center in this class, Jackson Power Johnson, is still available. Cooper Beebe still. The Bengals are still going to have their a pick at a very, very good player here. So I wouldn't panic too much. Listen, whenever there's a huge run on guys, that does not mean panic and draft the next guy just because he's there.
That's how you get Billy Price, right?
100%. So Joe, I mean, you can touch a little bit more about this, man, because I definitely want to include you as well. Is there, I guess the other cornerback that I like right now that's still available is Mike Sandstro from
Michigan.
From Michigan.
Yep.
You shaking your head?
He
No.
says no.
Let's talk about it.
He's a slot corner. So, I mean, they if anything, they have enough of those guys. They've had Mike Hilton for another year. They like Jalen Davis. I assume Dax Hill's going to play more of the slot this year, and they have him for another, 2 years at least.
Yeah.
I've got 5 guys that I would be targeting at this point. It would be Troy Franklin, the wide receiver out of Oregon. It'd be Jackson Powers-Johnson and Cooper Beebe. You mentioned them, both interior offensive linemen. They could play guard and challenge Volson, if not beat him out, right away at left guard, which would give you, 5, 6, 7 really good offensive linemen. When's the last time any team's ever had that? And then I would add Michael Hall, the defensive tackle out of Ohio State, and Chris Jenkins, the defensive tackle out of Michigan.
And I think that's the thing that's not being talked about enough is, the Bengals have 3 pending free agents after next year on the offensive line. If you're able to double up, and I'm sure Dave is probably smiling when I'm saying this, but if you're able to double up and potentially grab an interior offensive lineman, one of the better ones in the draft in round 2 at pick 49, because teams went absolutely crazy at quarterback and receiver and corner, man, you're smiling, man, because we always say, wait, the Bengals need to fix the offensive line. You look at the last couple of off seasons, what has hurt the Bengals, right? It's been the lack of depth in the offensive line. People are like, we don't want Jackson Carman or whoever to start. Well, this is how you don't put yourself in that situation, all right? If the Bengals pick is on the clock and you get the opportunity to draft a guy like Jackson Powers-Johnson or Cooper Beebe, I'm sorry, man. It's easy for me. I'm not Sonny Weaver Jr. I'm not overthinking this thing. It's going to be an easy pick for me.
What do you guys think of TJ Tampa? He didn't go yet, did he?
No, he did not yet.
TJ Tampa, what do you think of him? What's your opinion on that kid?
Joe,
TJ Tampa should be a 2nd round pick. I've got no problem with it. I wonder if the Bengals, he ran a 4.58, and if the Bengals have typically been drafting fast corners the last few years, it's really the only negative in his profile, and you have to wonder, what his long speed looks like and how that's going to develop.
But as we look at Dave, when we started this, you still thought that the 2nd round would be heavy offense.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of heavy defense in this second. We've seen the defensive tackles go. We then saw a run on the corners. Does this give you the option that Malik's talking about on jumping on an offensive guy at this point?
Well, either that or it's like, all right, man, if they're making the run, better get our corner, unless you want to wait till like the 6th round to get one. And how big a drop off is there? I don't know. To me, again, like I said, I'm not panicked. Based on what I'm hearing around the league. But my comment about there's still going to be more offense. They said in round 2 there's going to be more offense and defensive players. Well, early in the round, it hasn't turned out that way. That's for sure. But pick 70 to pick 150. More than one person around the league told me. I said, if I'm picking at number 70 or I'm picking at 100, how big a difference? Forget 100. How about 70 to 150? They're like, it's very, very marginal a difference. I said, depending on position, well, yeah, sure, but it's more than one position. There's a lot of positions where there's damn good football players at all of those spots from 70 to 150. There's no reason to panic. This is good a draft as there's been in a while in terms of depth. There's no question.
The Raiders break the hearts of Bengals fans for the 2nd day in a row, because there was a huge amount of large contingency of Bengals fans who wanted Brock Bauer as well. They do it again. They take Jackson Powers-Johnson.
Oh, so right on your talk.
The Raiders are, they're having a draft.
Okay, so that's
I don't think they would have gone there anyway. I don't think their hearts are broken at all.
Yeah.
I don't think they would have made that selection.
Okay, that's at 44. So we're now with the Packers at 45. So we're 4 picks away to this point. You guys still think, Evan, if we lead into this, is there enough here to say it doesn't matter where we fall at 49? We've got a guy we want?
Yeah, I think there's still plenty of talented guys on the board. Obviously, Troy Franklin's been talked about. A.D. Mitchell is falling for kind of health-related diabetes management issues, which I'm of the opinion that's part of player development. Your responsibility is developing both the player and the human. Trying to help him be more responsible and know how to do that is part of drafting this guy and having a plan in place for him. So if they opt to go that route, I think that would be good. I'm a Chris Jenkins fan. I like him a lot. I think he's pound for pound really strong, has great athleticism, good lateral agility, was 87th percentile in the shuttle. I think he could definitely be a good interior option. But to just touch on the corners, man, I'm with Dave. I love the interior offensive line depth in this class. I think there's really good guys that you can get in the 3rd, 4th round.
Right.
Christian Mahogany is one guy I really like.
Yep.
But corners, man, like if you want a guy in the 3rd round or like late 2nd, Kyrie Jackson's one of my favorites. Renardo Green is another guy. Chris Abrams-Drain is another mid 4th, 5th round guy you can get. Cam Hart, Elijah Jones is a personal favorite of mine that you might be able to get in the 5th.
Cam Hart out of Notre Dame.
Yes,
Yep.
and Elijah Jones. People who watched our show have heard me talk about him. He's 24, but the guy is 6'1.5", runs a 4.44, and had 6 pass breakups, 5 interceptions, and 18.1 passer rating when targeted, which ranks 2nd out of 153 corners. Like I can get on board with that for a late round guy to play 400, 500 snaps as a boundary corner, like Joe said, for backing up Cam Taylor-Britt and DJ Turner. So I feel like there's not some huge sense of urgency where you're like, oh, we got to go get a corner now. Otherwise, we might not get one we like.
Packers got Edgerrin Cooper. So that leads us past 45, going into 46, which leads us to the point of if you're listing all of these names and you say there is a run on corner and we're going to need one, Joe, can you make a mistake at 49 at this point?
Of course you can. If you go way too off the board, and they have a history of sometimes doing that, the Jackson Carmins, the Drew Samples, where it's not projected to even be close to where they're taking him. Yeah, that's how you make a mistake. But I think there's enough guys here that are still best player remaining that should fit what they typically draft. And Evan touched on A.D. Mitchell from Texas. I think that'd be a great replacement for T. Higgins in a year if you didn't expect him to be here. And yeah, you got to manage the diabetes. I mean, if that's the worst thing you got to worry about.
Right.
I think you're in great shape. And since Jackson Powers-Johnson went off the board, I think the next lineman I'd put up now is Kingsley Suamataia, who played left tackle and could probably play guard. A lot of teams viewed him as a guard. So now that gives you depth at tackle and guard, could compete for that starting job right there. And since the Bengals did take a tackle in the 1st round, we kind of said, well, what if they go corner there? What if they go D tackle? What if they go Brian Thomas Jr.? Remember when we were going through all that the last few months, which offensive tackles would be there for them at 49? Well, a lot of them still ended up being there with Kingsley Suamataia, Patrick Paul, Roger Rosengarten, Blake Fisher. So there's a lot of options in using hindsight a little bit here that there were some tackle options here at 49 for them potentially.
What do you guys think of the big corner out of Oregon, Jackson, 6'4", 195 pounds? What do you think of that?
I love Kyrie Jackson.
I
I'll
mean,
go ahead and jump on this
what-
real quick. Okay, so you got he's older, right? That's the big drawback because he's 24 years old. That's a little bit outside of their profile that they like to go for. But 6'3" and 3/4, almost 6'4".
Yeah.
He's got 89th percentile arm length. He runs the 4.5 flat, which is just about where they want to be. Generally, they're high 4.4s.
How about him as a press corner?
Oh, goodness, man. You're talking about a guy who's got length, explosion, press ability, short area quickness. Again, the drawbacks are really just a little bit under on the weight at 194, but that's not even that bad. It's just he looks a little wiry in that frame that he's got. But, man, length, explosiveness, ball production. He was 6 out of 153 corners in passer rating when targeted, 9th in forced incompletion rate, and had 8 pass breakups, 3 interception. Give me a guy with size, length, athleticism, and ball production. I don't care that he's 24.
I hear you.
He'll be 25 when the season starts, just to be fair.
Hey, that just means his frontal lobe is fully developed, right? He's ready to make decisions. We like that.
All right, let me ask you guys about a wide receiver. What do you guys think of Javon Baker?
Oh, love Javon.
Electric.
I mean, you think he's worthy of the 2nd round? I got him as a 3rd round guy. I don't think he's a 2nd round guy.
Yep.
I think he's a 3rd round guy. But, man, I'll tell you, I love that dude.
Mm-hmm.
Route running, arrogant hands. I mean, the guy, you put it in his vicinity and he's got go-go gadget arms.
I like that.
Oh yeah, you put it in his area. He's like, that ball is mine.
4th in yards per target, 4th in yards per route run out of 109 receivers. I mean, just a quality boundary guy. Has great feel for the boundary too. That's something that you don't always get with guys who are that sideline player who know how to use the sideline to their advantage. I think he's got great awareness there and can be that vertical threat. I don't think he ever has that wide receiver 1 upside that maybe some of these guys do that we're currently looking at, but could easily be the wide receiver 2 that replaces that boundary role for T.
I think that's an underrated trait is field awareness. And knowing exactly, having that feel of exactly where the boundary is.
And defender leverage. He attacks the leverage of the defender in the blind spot really well. It's underrated.
Guys, you see the comment on the screen there? Mike Hess is asking about Zach Frazier. Is it worth talking about at 49?
West Virginia?
Yeah.
He's a fighter. He's a mauler. He'll finish, man. He'll battle you. He'll bite you right in the nose, man, to get you blocked. He's a physical dude.
He's nasty. It definitely gives you that guard center versatility, which kind of helps you out to where, hey, you've got a guy who can maybe push to compete, Cordell Volson. And like you said, you always want to have competition, right? Because competition breeds success and gets the best players out there. So he gives you immediate competition there and also gives you a contingency plan, as Malik referenced, where you have so many of those interior guys coming off the books in the next 2 years.
Competition breeds excellence performance, period.
Yes, guys, we're officially one pick away from the Bengals pick.
Okay.
Just to catch you up to speed, the first running back went off the board to the Panthers and Jonathan Brooks. Tyler Nubin, safety, went to the New York Football Giants. It's all depending on what happens with the Jacksonville Jaguars, but goddamn, the Bengals have a good pick potentially here at 49. Man, they do. I did not expect the board to shape up this way with some of the talent that is on the board. If you guys want to touch on that a little bit, but I'm smiling from ear to ear because Zach Frazier's there, and I'm like a kid in a candy store right now.
I mean, the deep draft, it's showing itself. I mean, you have multiple options, and again, from pick 70 to 150. If they're all within, reason of this is my favorite flavor. No, this is mine. You're going to have multiple options at every single selection. So to everybody's point, the Bengals are a team that tries to live by their board. I mean, the scouts work all year long, and everybody involved works all year long to set the board.
So you're saying it's by score. It is going to be, you're going to be
within reason. And if you've got, they may have at the next pick at 48, they may have 3 or 4 guys left on their board that are from 44 to 49, and it's like flip a coin. And then it's going to be a lot of dialogue, man. It's going to be a lot of dialogue.
Joe, what are your thoughts on the Bengals' upcoming pick?
I'm looking at wide receiver. I'm thinking Troy Franklin and AD Mitchell. The fact that they're still there, whether you want the 4.4 speed of Troy Franklin, is only 176 pounds or so. But to me, as for like a Bengals comparable, we got Bengals fans watching this. There was a lot of cat-like quickness of Chad Johnson in him. Sure, he didn't have the same downfield ball skills and sideline awareness. Chad was rare with that, right? With the body control and contorting his body in the air, but the slants, the inside breaking routes where he would take them, split safeties, guys are biting at his ankles, and he's finishing off going 70 yards down the field. And it reminded me of Chad versus Miami in like 07 type play, where I'm like, yeah, that's give me a wiry guy that can break off his routes and get corners really bailing and getting nervous at the guy's speed, and you can snap it off on a 12-yard comeback. Troy Franklin would be a good fit here.
Joe, William Perry says, "In Goodberry, I trust."
Is that the fridge?
Is that the fridge? Is
that the fridge?
Nice.
I don't think it is. But you are the most quotable. Arrogant hands is one of the best.
My thing about these receivers that have this speed, but they're not big stature. You can't hit what you can't catch. But in the National Football League, more and more guys are sub 4.3 on the other side of the ball too, man. I mean, they're bigger body guys that can run. I mean, so I have a little bit of fear about guys that are that small. They in college, they can still use that to a big advantage. In the National Football League, it's a tighter race to the finish line, man. And if you're smaller, you can get hurt because they can run as fast as you do.
Bengals are officially on the clock. Mason Smith was the pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I'm glad.
But man, it's interesting times right here. The Bengals are officially on the clock. Very curious to see what happens here.
All right, you guys want to make your bold predictions?
I'll go Jenkins.
I say Chris Jenkins. He was my pick yesterday with
tackle,
the
interior down lineman.
With him.
Joe?
They should go Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver, Texas.
Yeah. I'm siding with Joe here, man. I'm going with AD Mitchell. If I have to be different, I'll say interior offensive line.
See, my thing is I'd go with they need to address offensive line, defensive line. There's more receivers and more corners out there. There's less defensive talent. As you get into the third round, there's a more select group of wide receivers and corners to draw from than if you take a receiver now, you're in more trouble in the third and fourth round, I think, at defensive tackle with level of player, I think.
Right. I think that's fair.
John Class says he's picking Chris Jenkins. We've got a couple of Jenkins. We've got a couple of Mitchells. There may be some selections out there. The Bengals do have a tendency to surprise, and they may not come up with a name that we have picked at this point. But obviously, as you've said, the depth of this draft has become so significant that even up till now, up to pick 48, there are surprises left and right. When you go, oh my goodness, this guy. Oh my goodness. And the depth is continuing to surprise. So I'm looking forward to pick 49 as we go.
As we grasp.
I think that, accumulation of mocks, Jenkins, he was kind of higher in the second round than number 18 pick. That's why he's still on the board. That's a need. I don't know. I'm thinking I'm leaning toward there.
I'm right there with you, man. You're talking about a guy who was 99th percentile in run stop rate, despite being 299 pounds, strong as an ox against the run.
Strong like bull, baby.
Even though, I know people might look at the production and say, hey, the sacks aren't exactly where you want them to be, but his pass rush win rate was still 11%, which was 17th out of 128 interior defensive tackles. So he's beating blocks, he's putting pressure on the quarterback, and really that's the most predictive year to year of future success. And with his athleticism, I think there's more to scratch the surface there as he gets polished as a pass rusher.
What do you got, Malik?
Dave, you are a wizard. So are you, Evan. The Bengals take defensive tackle Chris Jenkins.
There you go.
I'm 2 for 2, baby.
Baby.
It's my year.
Offensive and defensive line. Let's get after that.
Hey, there we go, Dave.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll drink to that.
Break me down Chris Jenkins again. We talked about him a little bit, but give me the lowdown. Joe, what's your take on that?
Yeah, we had him 56 overall on our board, so this is fair value to grab him at 49, especially with the defensive tackle run that went ahead of us here in round 2. Chris Jenkins, son of Chris Jenkins, who was a Pro Bowl player for the Carolina Panthers. He'll be 23-year-old as a rookie, 6'3", 299. When you see that body frame and that athleticism, you immediately think this guy's going to be a penetrating pass rusher. He was more of a two-gap run defender for Michigan, and he did really, really well with that. I mean, he's stacking, locking these guys out, shedding them, and making a lot of plays at the line of scrimmage for that Michigan defense. The problem is they did not allow him to really rush the passer, and the few times he did get it, as Evan brought up the pass rush win rate, you see it on tape. You're like, okay, yeah, this guy can do it, but I'd love to see 500 more snaps of it in college to be sure that a guy with that frame is going to be able to develop as a pass rusher.
I think that's part of Michigan's deal, though. Here's what I want out of you, and here's I don't. You have to stay in this gap. Harbaugh is defensive coordinator, so disciplined. It's just that's the way you play. The thing I like about him, 6'3". He can put on more weight. It's not, it's not like he's maxed out. It's not a 6 foot or 6 foot half inch dude.
He's muscled up too. Every pound is muscle.
Absolutely. He's rocked up. Exactly. So I think there's room, I'm telling you, it's become the valley of the big people. And I think this guy can get bigger.
Oh yeah, man. I'm excited about this pick, man. I do. I think Chris Jenkins has a huge upside. And, there are a lot of Bengals fans who are also Ohio State fans. They're like, why do we keep drafting Michigan players? Well, have you seen Michigan the last couple of years? The reason why they keep winning, man. They produce great, great players, man. And, man, this is a good pick.
Particularly offensive and defensive linemen.
100%.
That's Harbaugh, big time emphasis on recruiting those positions.
And what was a big emphasis that Bengals fans and probably the team alike has had for the trenches? It's they want to get more athletic, right? They need to have more juice on both sides of the ball there. And Chris Jenkins is 75th percentile 10-yard split, 87 on the 40, 94th percentile vert, which kind of shows, like Joe was talking about, there's probably more explosion there than is always consistently on tape because of what Michigan's asking you to do. Sometimes trying to play more contained than just get upfield and get after the quarterback. I feel like on some of these downs where he can really pin his ears back, he shows a little bit of those flashes. And with NFL bloodlines, with him being from Michigan, a big program, as we know Bengals love, that's something we've seen them go back to time and time again. And I think it's a really good pick.
And let's face it, in the AFC North, even though it's a passing league, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, they want to pound you. They want to control you at the line of scrimmage. You cannot have enough physical guys that are trying to impose their will and stake their claim at the line of scrimmage and own that line of scrimmage. That's how this kid plays. That's how Michigan plays football. Big Ten football. That's how Michigan plays. I think he translates big time.
And if he's not playing, if he's not playing, or you don't have somebody playing that true nose tackle spot, right? If they change their alignment a little bit, maybe they go to a wide front, do double up on either the 2 technique or the 3 technique gaps there, then
play an even front,
right? And then say, hey, we got this bubble in the middle. Let the linebackers just read what's in front of them, and then let's just get some gap penetrators in here, and then suddenly you've got something there where, especially if you have these guys playing the 3-tech, you want them strong. You want them to be able to defend the run to compensate for that lack of nose tackle. And I feel like Chris Jenkins would fit that so well.
All right, Joe, I know you want to talk about this, but I'm way behind on gifts. We've got to do gifts.
Give Joe a gift.
Joe, Joe, you've been getting lots of love on our stream. Hashtag Who Day is where we are. Hashtag Who Day. It's all caps. Include the hashtag, all caps. Remember, we're active listening here, folks. We appreciate you. This is, are we doing, is this our gift? This is a little tea. That's okay. I'm good. I'll get that. We got a T. Higgins jersey here, and this is hashtag Who Day. You get in, you continue to join. We've got jerseys, we've got shirts, we've got jackets, we've got more hats, and we've got a climax summer gift that is going to blow your mind at the end. So you've got to stay with it. Chris Jenkins, we're going to do it right now because we're behind. Yes, I did say that. I knew you were going to get me on that, Dave. All right, here we're going to spin now. Who Day. So if you've got that in, jump in quick because we're going to get after it right now. All right. So let's give you another 15 seconds just to talk about and T. Higgins is, you want this now, right?
Yeah, right.
You want the T. Higgins jersey right now. All right, we're good. Go ahead and spin. Let's spin this baby up, see where we are. We want to thank you for First Star Logistics providing all of these gifts. I mean, First Star Logistics is ridiculous in its generosity. And the building that they are now in, GC3, you are the winner of our T. Higgins jersey. Congratulations. All right. I got
nice GC3.
I got to move you in. What's my next hashtag? Because I may have dropped that puppy on the ground.
Real quick, Brad, about First Star Logistics. The thing about them is we all know, if they decide to do something, they do it right.
Yeah.
Whatever the heck we're talking about.
No question. AFC North is our next one, Dave. So hashtag AFC North. I said I'd pick that up, and Malik said, you're too slow. I've got it. I appreciate the old man can't get down that quick. All right, Joe. So we were going on pick.
Did you have back surgery like Goodell, Brad? You did?
Not yet, but it could be coming.
Oh, no.
You were doing a lot of nodding on the guy at the nose with Jenkins and where he does and where he fits into this. Fill me in on that.
Yeah, because I think a lot of Bengals fans are worried about the nose tackle position. You lose DJ Reader, one of the best in the league, and we just described Chris Jenkins as a run defender. That doesn't automatically put him at the nose, or he doesn't really have that body. Maybe he, adds 20 pounds down the line, as we've talked about. He's got the frame. He's got the not just the 6'3", but the 34-inch arms, which is really nice for a defensive tackle. It's rare to get those guys with that type of length inside. But where he lined up mostly at Michigan was in the B gap and over the tackle all the way out to a 5-tech. So you could do those things with him, and you're going to get a good run defender. That's what he is. I think with this pick, it's the upside of, all right, let's see if he can be more of a pass rusher, because I think that's something the Bengals were still lacking on this defensive line was an interior pass rusher. And while they shored up the run defense a little bit, they probably could use another pick or two there to help out the nose tackle position and pass rushing.
All right. More to talk about, guy, but I'm setting you up so you get more time because we didn't get a whole lot of time. This is our Wilson jersey.
Yes.
Hashtag AFC North.
Yes.
For you to get in now. Now you may go, Dave.
Well, I'm just, I'm just saying that I forgot what I was going to say to Jay.
Well, we were talking about the nose and getting the rushers and having them in that space.
I'm saying what I was going to say is one of the holes that a perceived hole that Bengal Nation felt was losing DJ Reader, interior defensive line. They've addressed both offensive and defensive line. Where's the game won? In the pits, at the line of scrimmage, and you can never have enough. Lou Anarumo loves the rotation. I mean, if you get 25, 30 snaps a game out of this kid, it's well worth the pick. It might be more than that, but you don't want an interior defensive lineman to have to take 65, 70 snaps. You just don't want that to happen.
Right.
And he's gonna add to that rotation big time.
Agreed. And I think the one thing people aren't talking about is there is potential pass rush upside there. There's potential pass rush. I'm excited about it because I'm excited about the pick because I was talking about this a couple weeks ago, and one of my buddies shut me down. I was like, no, we should not draft Chris Jenkins. And then I kid you not, I was up till 4 a.m. watching tape on Chris Jenkins with Daniel, and I said, man, what if what if? And the pick makes a lot of sense. One question I want to ask you guys.
What about Jenkins and Hill for an interior pass rush?
Yeah,
Right.
Hill can get after the quarterback a little bit.
Oh yeah,
no doubt.
Yeah, and
No
the
doubt.
rankings too. It's
Bengals are eating their
right,
vegetables,
yeah.
man.
Yeah.
They're eating their vegetables. I know it's sweet and it's tasty to go after the wide receivers, get a little juice, and it's flashy to go to the offense. But the trenches are where a lot of the games are won and lost, man.
Yep.
That's definitely going to help them, I think, going forward, getting more athletic, getting younger at these positions.
Dave,
getting
I'm
cheaper there too.
gonna talk my age, going back to when you and I were in the booth together, and that was the 2000 to 2010
You're a kid, Brad.
years.
You're still a kid.
And that was a lot. If you remember, that was a lot of the complaint during draft days, is that the Bengals did not focus on interior. They were continually looking for weapons. They couldn't build anything, but they couldn't protect a quarterback at that time. And this appears to be that move. We're going to stay Super Bowl ready because we're going to be interior. You lay a foundation, you stay on the foundation, and then you build around that.
Well, simple football geometry tells me the shortest path to the quarterback is inside on a pass rush. I mean, if you can get not necessarily, sacks all the time, but penetration of the pocket, obscuring vision, getting hits on the quarterback, all of that takes its toll. And a kid like this can add to that. There's no doubt. I mean, Jenkins isn't going to come in and get 8.5 sacks or something like that. But if he does, hey, God bless America. But I think that interior pass rush, as a former interior offensive lineman, our job was to keep the depth of the pocket. The tackles kept the width, and the center and guards kept the depth. And you did not want to have a big push. You didn't want your quarterback thrown out of a hole or worrying about hitting his hand on somebody's helmet or shoulder pad on his follow through. And a guy that can cause that kind of angst for an offensive football team.
The other side of that, too, is I know sacks are ultimately the goal, right? But that pressure pushing a quarterback to roll out of the pocket cuts the field in half. And if you don't have one of those alien guys like Josh Allen or Pat Mahomes that can get away with throwing across their body, you limit so much of the field and you allow the defense to be more aggressive, bite down, read the quarterback as they're doing that, and kind of feel the flow of the play. And that gives you more opportunities to jump on the ball, too, and get out in front of it and create turnover opportunities.
Get out of pocket, not just throw across the body, but like you say, all the way across the field. I mean, the backside third from the hash mark to the sideline opposite to where they're rolling from, defenses are like, don't have to worry about that. And you only have to cover 2/3 of the field now, and
that's helping your DBs out.
It's a big difference.
Yeah, Malik, you're doing a lot of nodding.
Well, the Steelers saw what we just did, and they said, I see what you just did. So, what we're going to do? We're going to take Zach Frazier because we need to make sure that we're prepared. Joe, I want to get you involved on this.
Steelers copied us in 2 picks now.
Exactly.
Offensive tackle and inside.
They said, we see what you're doing. We're going to match you.
Yeah.
Joe, I got a question I want to post for you, and I know Bengals fans might be wondering this themselves, so I'll be the voice, I guess. And the question I posed for you: the Bengals have 2 picks in the 3rd round. You got a guy like A.D. Mitchell that is still on the board. Now, there is a guy that you and I like, and Jalen McMillan, who might be in the 3rd round. But if you were the Bengals, are you tempted at all to say, A.D. Mitchell ain't making it to the 3rd round? Maybe we have to move up for that guy, or do you value those 2 picks in the 3rd round a little bit too much?
You're setting me up to look like the aggressive one in this thing here. I'm
100
ready to trade up for all these guys.
Usually that's me.
Yeah, because I do think there's a gap. But if you're going to spend one of these 80 or 97 picks on a wide receiver, and you have a gap on your board with it, whether it's Troy Franklin or A.D. Mitchell, and then I could see the value of piggybacking a 5th round pick to get up just a little bit more to secure your guy. But I also have one more point on Chris Jenkins. How many times last year did we watch this run defense struggle to get in the second wave defensive lineman? And you'd see a big run, you go, wait, they're rotating Zach Carter, and that's right, he can't handle against a double team, and can't hold his ground versus the run. Well, this is a direct upgrade, Chris Jenkins over Zach Carter. It should your 3rd defensive tackle can play upwards of 500 snaps in a season, especially if you're making a playoff run. He will play a lot. I know, because I'm sure there's a lot of Bengals fans wondering, oh, great, we got another backup. No, it's not that. You got specialized role players that can help your team.
I also want to just say to Bengals fans out there, this is a star-studded cast that I'm honored to be a part of, obviously, with Brad, with Dave, with Evan, with Joe. And the way that you can keep, in contact with all of our content that we do is subscribing to the First Star Media Group YouTube channel. So make sure you guys do that. That's where you can catch Bengals on the Brain, In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, and of course State of the Jungle with me and my crew. And they all do a fantastic job. And I just want to make sure you guys give this video a like and subscribe as well while you are here. We appreciate you.
All right, and with that, if you are participating again for the Logan Wilson jersey, this is the one that's up next. AFC North hashtag AFC North, all caps. This is your jersey prize. We still have
double fives, baby.
There you go. We still got a bunch of good. Oh my gosh, I see a Lapham jersey coming up. So you guys got to hang on for this. Hashtag AFC North, all caps.
Right. I got a headache because double fives when I was playing was Jimmy LeClaire.
Oh,
and he had forearm bone, hit my forehead so many times.
You got some PTSD.
If you see me twitching, it's LeClaire's fault, man.
All right, this is coming up. So we're coming up. If we're getting a lot of love on the Bengals' first 2 picks, and you guys are all seeming to feel like they're doing it the right way, does stuff have to fall their way again as we are seeing, you know what? Hey, this is fantastic. We love where we are right now. Are we continuing the depth through all of the second and third round where we're still going to be able to say it doesn't matter and we don't have to jump at anything moving forward?
Like I'm saying, to pick 150, to me, it's not. Let me ask you guys, what about Polk at wide receiver?
I think he got picked by the Patriots. Yeah,
he did.
Yeah, he went early. He went early today.
Adonai Mitchell just went as well to the Colts.
Who did?
Adonai Mitchell, the receiver.
He just went.
Yeah,
Good pick.
Okay,
very good pick for them. And
all right.
They get Anthony Richardson some help.
Okay, so some of those guys are gone. Do we move to a spot? We saw runs on defensive tackles. We saw runs on cornerbacks. The Bengals didn't participate in the runs. Is there a run coming forward that you would anticipate going through the end of the second?
The Bengals didn't participate in the runs. Those are miserable.
I've set you up twice now, haven't I, Dave?
I think interior offensive line could potentially be something.
Yeah,
Is Cooper Beebe still out there? And Christian Mahogany and Christian Hayes. So like a lot of people
Zach
that they thought, Zach Zinter, Trevor Key, even Javian Cohen, I know some people are really high on. So between all that, I think there's a handful of interior offensive linemen, but this is one of the advantages of kind of waiting on that position, which you can historically do, where you find a lot of starters kind of round 3, 4, and 5 on the interior positions where athleticism is not necessarily as rare or as important as it is for guys like tackles with the weird combination of length, strength, size, athleticism, all of that. So I think there are opportunities for that, but I definitely would consider it a home run if they can manage to get whether one of the tight ends, whether that is Jatavian Sanders falling all the way to the 3rd round, that would be a value I'd feel more appropriate taking him. But I would prefer Ben Sinnott myself.
I'm not as high on. I think he's fallen for a reason, in my opinion. But I think going into the draft, I thought with these first 2-day picks, if they could address offensive tackle, defensive tackle, wide receiver, and cornerback, home run. Yes. Now, if a tight end is there, I don't have a problem with that necessarily. Right. I mean, look at that as a receiver type scenario as well. But those are I'd really target wide receivers and cornerbacks now that we're into that 3rd round. I think there's still some meat on the bone there. I think those couple of positions. And again, if a tight end is like, oh man, that guy's still there.
Right.
Jump on it.
All right. We're waiting to 80. We're not waiting anymore to give away Logan Wilson's jersey. So let's spin it away. If you are in at hashtag AFC North, we're going to spin for Logan Wilson's jersey right now. And I have no music to play along with this spin.
Logan Wilson, new daddy, by the way. You guys seen
Congratulations, Logan.
He with his little baby girl.
Jason Bowl, you are the winner of Logan Wilson's jersey. Congratulations. We're moving on to, what's our next hashtag? We're all searching. What is it? Joe Burrow. Oh, Joe Burrow. Our hashtag is all caps, hashtag Joe Burrow. I wonder what we might give away with that. All right. That's coming up. I want to take time to go back in time to the guy that everybody loves. Dave loves him. We love him. Continue to love him. But Dave got to sit down with Boomer Esiason and chat a little bit. Here's their conversation.
All right, so Boomer, it is draft week. I guess first and foremost, give us a draft story, that might entertain the troops here that are that have joined us about your draft. What was your draft day like?
It was terrible. It was brutal. It was everything you would think it would be, especially when you have, like, you think of yourself as the greatest player of all time, right? So I had a tough draft day. 1984, I thought I was going to be in the top 5 picks.
Did you? Yeah.
There were a couple teams that were talking to me, and I definitely thought I was the first guy that was going to be picked, simply because Steve Young would have been picked. But he decided to go to the USFL. And I remember holding a press conference pre-draft saying, I don't want anything to do with the USFL. I didn't grow up wanting to be in the USFL, which was in its infancy. I wanted to be an NFL player.
Sure.
So I wanted to make sure that all NFL teams knew that I wanted to be an NFL player. And the Bengals had the first pick in the 84 draft. They traded it. And I think they traded it when they realized that Steve Young was going to the USFL. I think they really wanted him to be their quarterback. And of course, the Bengals ended up with 3 picks in the 84 draft, and there were only 28 teams. So I figure, I had worked out with Sam at my high school. I had talked to Sam. I must have really impressed him, huh? So with the first 3 picks, they took Ricky Hundley, my teammate at the University of Maryland, Pete Koch, and then with the 28th overall pick, they took Brian Blados. And then, I'm sitting in my college dorm room, and we didn't have ESPN, and I think ESPN, it might have been 2 or 3 years old, and they were just covering the draft. And of course, it was all the draft coverage that we know now, but just not nearly as big as it is. Sure. Because of the popularity of the sport. So, I'm sitting in my hotel, my college dorm room, and I'm wondering, am I going to get picked? Am I going to get picked? Now, Pete Koch got picked 16th, and I think Ron Solt, who was also a teammate of mine, an offensive lineman, who got picked by the Colts, I want to say around 14 or 12. And everybody thought I was going to be a top 5 pick. So I'm sitting in my dorm room, like I said, and then finally the phone rings, and it's Sam Weiss. She goes, "Hey, Boomer, it's Sam. I think we'd love to have you as a Bengal." And I said, did you effing forget about me? So we got off to a great start. What can I tell you? And then I landed in Cincinnati. And what I remember is I was really angry because, of course, I wasn't happy with where I was picked. It probably cost me a couple $1 million at the beginning of it all.
Right.
And it was Peter King who picked me and Pete Koch up at the airport. I don't know how he ended up doing it. He was writing for the Cincinnati Enquirer at the time.
Right.
And I think he had a Volkswagen Rabbit. So Pete had to take the front seat. He was 6'6", 290 pounds.
Right.
I had to shoehorn myself in the back seat of this thing, 6'4", 225 pounds.
Oh.
And Peter's going, "Okay, guys, we're going to Spinney Field." And I'm like, "This is the effing NFL? You gotta be, shitting me." So, we pulled into Spinney Field, and initially I thought that he was joking, and I thought we were at, like, the City Pound. You know what I mean? I thought we were walking into, like, the Pound, because if you remember, those lockers were chain link fencing.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so, that's my draft day story. It's exciting, but everybody has to start somewhere, Dave, right?
No doubt. And Boomer, with that said, that start, man, what a glorious career you had with the Cincinnati Bengals. Boomer Esiason is beloved in Cincinnati. Yeah. There's no question about it.
All right, the crew has changed a little bit here. The crew has changed a little bit here. We got the State of the Jungle crew. Surprise, surprise. Boys, it's good to be here with you guys, man, for the First Star Logistics second annual draft stream. We get to react. They don't gotta wait till Wednesday.
Oh,
They
no.
get the reaction right here, the fire reaction. Are me and Evan gonna go at it? Are we gonna spar like we do the last couple of weeks on the show? No, I'm kidding. Guys, we had a good draft. We're having a good draft so far.
Yeah.
Chris Jenkins, Marius Mims. How do you guys feel about the pick? You've heard from Evan, you've heard from me, yeah, even heard from Joe. Daniel, what are your thoughts on the pick so far?
So first off, I'm glad to be on here with you guys. Excited to see Joe there on the TV. We got Malik, we got Logan, we got Evan. I'm excited for this. Chris Jenkins to me is you're fitting a need with the talent as well. When you look at Chris Jenkins versus these other DTs, I like Michael Hall. I like Dwayne Carter. I like these other defense tackles, Leonard Taylor. I wouldn't even be opposed to doubling up later. But when you look at Chris Jenkins, he's truly the guy that I saw and is, hey, in the running game, he's going to give you the most that what can, replace like what a DJ Reader gave you. So it fits a need. I think or Chris Jenkins is a younger prospect. I love, what I saw out of him out of Michigan. So I'm definitely a fan of it. It fits a need. And I'm just curious to see where the Bengals go. Interior offensive line, I'm looking. Wide receiver, I'm looking. There's a lot of talented guys left on the board, even cornerback too.
And this is a tip of the hat to what we do on State of the Jungle. Guys, drop some questions down in the comment section. You got Joe Goodberry here. Joe isn't always on with State of the Jungle crew, but Joe, of course, is the sixth member of State of the Jungle crew, if you will. And if you want to ask him some questions, now would be the time to ask him these questions as well. But Logan, what are your thoughts so far on the Bengals draft? And then I want to go over to Joe.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need to talk about Mims too much. Everybody's already did that, said all the fun things. But just with Chris Jenkins, I think the thing about him, he's really just an AFC North football player. I think with his fit in Cincinnati, he's clearly going to be an elite run defender. That's what he's here for. That's what he was drafted for again. And that's why he fits so well in the AFC North. A 98 run grade last year, according to PFF. There's just so much to like in that area of his game. Yeah, maybe he leaves some to be desired in the passing game or, just getting to the quarterback. But there's still athleticism. There's still plenty of things to like, to kind of hope. And there's plenty of things that you can see to where that's going to come and that's going to develop. And there's still upside there. But at the very least, you're getting an elite run defender. You lose DJ Reader, so you can kind of come in. Nobody's going to just replace DJ Reader right away, but you replace one elite run defender with another.
Joe, Michael Hall just went to the Cleveland Browns, man, and Bengals fans are saying, oh, great. Now we get to see if he's going to wreck our dreams year after year. Joe, talk to us about this. Should the Bengals fans be panicking a little bit? I know Michael Hall is a guy that a lot of people like. They said that he had high upside. He's a guy with a lot of potential. What are your thoughts on Michael Hall? And what are your thoughts on the Bengals' next pick, potentially?
Yeah, so Michael Hall is a pass rusher, obviously, from Ohio State. Didn't get to play in a lot of rundown situations. When he did, I saw him at nose a lot, which he's not going to do. It looks like he put on about 20 pounds before his pro day and absolutely blew it up and looked great as an athlete. But guys like that tend to be in the NFL situational players. They continue to be good against the pass, not good against the run. When there's a lot of carryover from what you did in college at defensive tackle to what you'll do in the NFL. So if we got a run defender, they got a pass rusher. Each team probably still needs to find the other piece. They're going to have a role player each side. I'm more upset by Ben Sinnott going to the Washington Commanders just before they get Johnny Newton and Ben Sinnott. I'm out of here. I'm done with this.
You know what? As soon as that pick happened, I said, oh, man, I know Joe is pulling his hair out. That's why you got the hat on right now, right? I said, Joe must be pulling his hair out right now because I know Ben Sinnott is a guy that you talked a lot about. But, Joe, you talk about the Bengals' next pick, right? And you see guys like a Cooper Beebe still on the board, right? Or you see even a receiver the Bengals will go out. What is the pick for you right now, Joe, that you're looking at and you're like, man, I want the Bengals to take this guy?
Yeah, so to go back and look at 50 or 49 before we fully moved to 80 and 97, the Bengals were looking at three guys there as that pick was approaching. It was Mason Smith, defensive tackle at LSU. He went one pick ahead of them to the Jaguars. We all fist bumped on that one. Then we dodged a bullet. We got the better player if it was between him and Chris Jenkins. The other guy they did not expect to be there that was high on their board was A.D. Mitchell. And so a lot of people are going to wonder if they should have went that route, but I think the Bengals wanted to go trenches early in this draft, and they succeeded in attacking both those areas. So does that mean they want to go wide receiver relatively soon here as round 3 rolls around? I think they do. There's one guy for me here that's still way above the rest. Unless he's just being drafted, Troy Franklin's way above everyone. I mean, I don't think it's close. I think his data profile is as strong as any receiver that's come out in a long time. But on tape, he's a little bit rough, to be honest with you. Rounds off his routes at times. His depth of his routes, timing of his routes could all be something to work on. That may be something the Bengals do not like, but we're talking about a younger prospect. I think 21.2 years old. There's a lot of upside remaining in Troy Franklin.
I like that, Joe. And I think part of the other reason that he might be falling, obviously, is that he's 176 pounds, weighed in at that. That's fifth percentile. That lack of strength and physicality can show up in the route, the stem of the route, and kind of struggle to separate in some of those instances if they can manage to get the hands off of you. But he's 99th percentile in receiving grade versus single coverage, 96th percentile in yards per route run, forced 14 missed tackles, and has the second best age-adjusted production in the class. I think one of the other knocks on him probably is just the lack of a diverse route tree, where 76% of his routes were hitch, slant, go. That's very limited, and I think he has more ability than that, but he just wasn't necessarily asked to do that. So there's a degree of projection there, and I think that combined with the size and the strength might be a reason that he's a little lower by NFL standards.
Yeah, and guys, definitely drop your questions down in the comment section. I'm trying to get to some of them before we move to our next segment, but I want to say something. Evan, you said earlier, you said earlier today that you were talking about Patrick Paul. Well, he just went off the board to the Miami Dolphins here, man. He went off to the board to the Miami Dolphins here. So that's a guy that obviously our guy Parker Blake was talking about a little bit. He liked. Guys, I'll be honest with you. The next guy that I'm eyeing up in the third round, let's say if the Bengals stay pat, they don't move at all. And let's say Troy Franklin is off the board, because I agree with you, Joe. I think that Troy Franklin has huge upside potentially. Is Jalen McMillan. I got to be honest with you, man. And Daniel, this is a guy that you love, and I want to hear you touch on it a little bit.
So I want to touch on two guys as well as Jalen McMillan. Jalen McMillan, when you watch the film, to me, he's just smooth, right? You look at him. Yes, he played with Rome Odunze. Yes, he played with Jalen Polk, but he was by far and away the more smooth than a Jalen Polk. He's just extremely smooth. He's great hands, ability to pluck the ball, and you're getting versatility. You're getting a guy who's 6'1", I believe, like 200, 190, 200 pounds, but he can play outside. He can play inside, and I think that's something that if we're looking for the best potential fit for the Bengals, I think he's the best potential fit versus a guy that I love. I love Roman Wilson, to be honest. I'm a huge Roman Wilson fan. I think Roman Wilson is not going to give you the versatility, and that's the biggest knock. He is 5'11", 6 foot, but with me, I truly see a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown. When I watch his film, just his hands are great. Wasn't super productive.
He has arrogant hands.
He definitely has.
You see what I did there? I pulled a Joe Goodberry. I'm using that forever, by the way.
I think he has very good hands. He just plucks the ball out of the air. Not the greatest catch radius, but to me, he's a guy where you slot him in right away. I think he can give you what Tyler Boyd gave you and then some. So Roman Wilson is definitely the guy that I would say, hey, maybe it's not the best, potential fit for the outside and inside versatility, but he's a player. He steps in day one and produces.
We have a question here, Joe and guys. It says, who would be an ideal outside wide receiver to make Chase a more versatile weapon? Joe, you have the floor.
Yeah, Jalen McMillan is one of those guys who did play inside, outside. I think he will be a slot guy and be better off inside. He also did some wildcat things. He could do he can maybe be a Mohamed Sanu level player, even though he looks more like Tyler Boyd, to keep it with the Bengals comparisons, to draw a picture for some of you over there. But I think another guy could be Brendan Rice, though, kick inside and be better off in the slot. And I think some of his release packages and will be, you can get him inside and get him away from press a little bit more in the slot. And I think you can get the maximize his upside. But I just saw as Patrick Paul's going, and I'm looking at some of these guys going here. The offensive line to me is probably going to be the value when it gets back around to us. If Kingsley Suamataia and those guys are still on there, I'm still like shocked that Roger Rosengarten, Blake Fisher, all these guys haven't gone yet.
Yeah. Evan, what about you and Logan?
Yeah, I talked about Kyrie Jackson. He's one of my favorite targets in the late third round. I feel like that's kind of appropriate value for him. He's a guy we tried to get in mock drafts constantly. Logan and I did. Fortunately, we couldn't, but I'd be happy if the Bengals did it in the real deal. Obviously, Jalen McMillan hits a lot of the physical and measurable benchmarks historically that the Bengals have liked in the first couple rounds. I do like Javon Baker just in the sense of he had the more consistent production, but he doesn't have the slot inside out versatility that McMillan might have. have. And I think McMillan does a really good job of kind of having just the nuance and squeezing all the juice that he can from the fruit, so to speak, where he doesn't have a lot of wasted movement. He's fluid. He kind of has all the little nuances of trying to get a defender to flip his hips and then attack that leverage and that blind spot and kind of just make the most of what he's got. He doesn't have the elite deep speed or change of direction skills and wasn't the most productive or efficient with his opportunities, but I still think it's a really good football player who can give you some nasty in the run game as a blocker. That big slot being a run blocker is definitely an advantage if you're going to be out there in 11 personnel all the time. So that's definitely something I'm looking at. I think also just we talked about it a little bit before we came back on camera, where almost all of the top of the interior offensive line class is still there, where you're talking about Cooper Beebe, Christian Haynes, and Zach Zinter, all these guys where I'm like, man,
love Zach Zinter.
You might be able to get one of these guys in the fourth round if you're falling this far. And like Joe said, if you have a tackle that falls into your lap that you think you has maybe slots into guard a little bit better, you have that freedom to do that now. You can also take your pick of the litter if you think the guards are just going to fit there and you want to just take a guy who you've seen play that position. So I think they've kind of freed themselves up to go a lot of different directions here.
Logan, I'm going to actually put this question to you. Somebody's asking, I know you love your linebackers.
Yeah.
Joe, if you don't know, Logan loves his linebackers. I'm talking about, we get to the 7-6 round. He's like, oh, let's take Cedric Gray. But he's naming linebackers. I don't even know the name of them. What's the guy from Washington that you're really high on?
I don't pronounce his
name. Okay, there we go.
He's
high on. But somebody's asking about the NC linebacker, Peyton Wilson. And they're saying, what about him? What are your thoughts on him?
I mean, Wilson's film is just really good. He's a really good player when he's on the field. But the thing is, he's just not really on the field. And, that's always worrisome. That's always going to just immediately take you off of some team sports. But when he's on the field, he really changes the game. Especially, we've drafted a lot of linebackers in the top half of the drafts historically. I think it's roughly about the 8th most in the last decade for linebackers in the first 3 rounds. So immediately that's something to tell you to consider linebacker. Obviously, we still have Logan Wilson. We have Jermaine Pratt. But again, the depth behind them is slim. They both just recently signed. But still, Peyton Wilson, when he plays, he is really good, really good. Sideline to sideline speed, can do it all. He's a good blitzer, good in coverage. Again, he just doesn't stay on the field. But when he plays, man, he's just really good. There ain't much to really say about him besides he's a good football player with some serious medical issues. But it could be a value for somebody if he stays.
Also 24 years old, great athleticism, but still a little bit undersized. He came in with 6th percentile arm length and 26th percentile on the weight, and that's more jarring, I guess, if you look at him because he's a little bit more slender, being 6'3.5". That just kind of makes him look a little bit more slender, a little bit more svelte. But he was first in run stop percentage out of 97 linebackers. He was second in coverage grade out of 127 qualifiers. So this is not to say that he was not very, very good, like Logan said when he was on the field.
We've got a question for Joe. Joe, how would you feel about the Bengals drafting Braylon Allen out of Wisconsin?
Not very high on Braylon Allen. To me, he's very similar. Let's keep the Bengals comparisons going. Jeremy Hill. I think he's a one-cut, good speed for a guy that has the size. If you can get him in a breakaway situation with 8 in the box and he can outrun a defender, then fine. Otherwise, I think he takes too long to get up to speed. I don't think he'd be a good power back or goal line back because it takes a while. The acceleration is not there. He's one of the younger guys in this class, though, so maybe he can develop a little bit more. I just have a lot of backs ahead of Braylon Allen.
Guys, I love this segment, having the State of the Jungle crew up here with you guys. And somebody asked in the comment section, Malik, Jermaine Burton. Hell yeah, that's Burton, guys. I'm not going to talk about it. Guys, we'll be right back. And when we get back, we'll be back with a episode of Bengals on the Brain.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realize self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team. What's up, everybody? Dave Lapham here. Proud to have played for the Cincinnati Bengals for 10 seasons. Also proud to have finished my 38th season in the broadcast booth. So it's been a lot of fun, and appreciate the Cincinnati Bengals for giving me that great opportunity. Also, want to thank First Star Logistics for giving me the opportunity to be part of the second annual Bengals Draft Party that you're taking part in here. I hope you're enjoying it. We really like doing this. We really love your feedback. I hope you like communicating with us. Also, another way you can catch us is In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. And we'll post 2 or 3 things every single week, interviews with Bengals players, coaches, scouts, broadcasters around the National Football League.
big picture National Football League stuff in general, as well as Major League Baseball and other sports. So you can catch that on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcast. We'll look forward to seeing you then.
I'm Malik Wright, host of State of the Jungle with Malik Wright, presented by First Star Logistics. We're live every single Wednesday at 7 p.m. Join me and the guys as we discuss all the latest happenings surrounding the Cincinnati Bengals. We debate, we agree, but at the end, we all have the best interest in mind of the Bengals. And if you guys want to tune into that, subscribe to the First Star Media Group YouTube channel, as well as the Sit Down with Malik Wright YouTube channel.
Hello, everyone. Joe Goodberry here of Bengals on the Brain, presented by First Star Logistics. If you're looking for more analysis, film review, and breakdowns of all the Bengals players and draft picks from this weekend, make sure you check out every episode of Bengals on the Brain on Tuesdays and Fridays from the First Star Media Group YouTube channel.
We are back. This is a gorgeous facility. So we are back. Brad Johansen along with Dave Lapham, Malik Wright, Evan McPhillips, Joe Goodberry. We're thrilled you guys are with us. And the Bengals are shining as First Star Logistics is shining. This beautiful new building in Blue Ash, not yet complete, which is why you guys aren't partying here. This is the second annual. In the third annual, we will be partying here. See, this is one of the questions that was posed to us, Dave, while we were gone. Are Lapp and Johansen drinking all the beer?
If so, I'd be.
Yeah, we'd both be out at this point. But we're gonna have about, what would you say, 1,000, maybe 1,500 people here next year.
Wow.
This is the spot we're gonna do it. Third annual draft party. We're thrilled you're a part of it. Do I need to be teeing up our next hashtag? What's our next hashtag? Our next hashtag is Burrow. It is Joe Burrow. It is hashtag Joe Burrow. This is our next giveaway.
Nice.
So this is the number 9 jersey that you'll have. Again, active listening. See, Craig Young has it right there. Hashtag Joe Burrow, all caps. And this is what we'll be giving away. Stay with us. Are we giving it away now? Oh, look at that. I timed this perfectly. We're going to spin the wheel. We don't have great music for the wheel spin, but it will continue on here. This is for
da, 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 da.
And Caleb BJ is our winner of the number 9 Joe Burrow jersey. Congratulations,
nice.
Caleb. And Joe Goodberry as our next hashtag. Look at that reaction. He's very excited about that. Again, all caps, hashtag Joe Goodberry. Here's your First Star Logistics.
Oh, you got the Bengals on the Brain bucket hat. Okay.
Hat.
Bengals on the Brain bucket.
There we are.
Hat for the bucket
we got
head.
a black one, we got a white one, and we'll have these as prizes. So sign in now. The prizes keep coming. And again, at the end, what did I say, Dave? We will climax at the end for a beautiful prize at the end. Bengals pick at number 80. Where are we? Let's move on quickly. We're at 80. Where are we, guys? Malik, anything surprising you on the run? Do we got any runs going on here before we get to Bengals?
Man, I'm hoping that it continues the way it's going right now, man. I mean, it looks like you might have a shot at a receiver that you like, or you might have a shot at even an interior offensive lineman here for the Bengals. Right now, if I'm the Bengals, I'm definitely eyeing that receiver position. You know, whether it be a Javon Baker, whether it be, Joe talked about Brendan Rice, or whoever. There might be an opportunity there, because that's a position the Bengals have to address at some point in this draft.
Yeah, and I'm staying by my 4 positions, and the offensive tackle position and the defensive tackle position have been addressed. So I'm wide receiver or corner. I think those are in this round where they have the 2 picks. I'd like to see him address those 2 position groups in whatever order. Now, if something slides ridiculously, like a tight end or like an offensive lineman, like you're talking about, it's like, I can't believe this guy's there. Like we talked about, you put all that time and all that effort into setting your board.
Right.
Why ignore it? Why go away from it now?
Keith is asking you, Joe, your thoughts on Javon Baker, and you may have shared some of those now, but go into depth. Hang on, Joe. Come on back to us. Try one more time. I want to make sure we got your voice up.
Yeah.
So
Packers take Javon Bullard, by the way, while we're waiting for Joe.
Oh,
Okay.
different Javon then. Okay, so we still got Javon Baker, Javon B, the other one. So he had to transfer, went to USF, and where he really was able to blossom and show as an outside wide receiver. Really good pacing wide receiver. Like, he changes his tempo and his routes, really disguises what he's doing. I think corners really struggle with that pacing because he's a guy that doesn't look like he's running the fastest. And he didn't test the fastest, but all the GPS numbers and data says that he was actually one of the quickest, longest speed type guys that you want. And you see it in his deeper routes. He attacks all 3 levels of the field. I think, honestly, he's an ideal number 2 type of wide receiver for the outside, guy that can win on the intermediate and the deep. And, if you want to hit him on the slants on 3rd and 5, he will get open with those release packages. And I really like Javon Baker.
Guys, we got to talk about 2 receivers that are going into their 2nd year. Esiason Jones. And I know, as a former player, my biggest gains were from year 1 to year 2. As a rookie, you really don't know what you don't know. It's like it's a big jump. And I think both Esiason and Jones filled roles last year. I think they may expand on their roles this year. And when we're talking about their need at wide receiver, I don't want to diminish what those 2 guys might be, from year 1 to year 2. It's not like the cupboard is bare, is my point, at the receiver position. Now, could they use another, particularly with the uncertainty with respect to T. Higgins and everything? Of course. But, I want to give those guys props because I thought that they came along, they developed as rookies. And I think there's more room for growth and development. And I think we're going to see that in year 2. I really do.
Evan, your thoughts? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's all right. I give you some space to do your thing, Brad. You're really good at it. You knew I was wanting to jump at the butt there. I think Malik can really attest to that. I was as high coming into the season on Charlie Jones as just about anybody.
Yeah.
I really believed in his potential and that he could be a very good weapon in the slot for this offense.
Yep.
And all season, I clamored like crazy, please get this guy on the field so it's not an unknown going into the offseason, so you at least have more information so you can evaluate better what your succession plan is post Tyler Boyd, right? But unfortunately, despite playing in 8 games, he played just 44 snaps and ran only 30 routes.
That shoulder. He had that injury.
And that's the tough part, right? Is, as much as I want to say, yes, he has that ability, I haven't seen it yet. And we have 1 year and 30 routes and really 1 game to judge him off of. So I can't really say, don't take X, Y, or Z right now because you have Charlie Jones. You should feel fine.
Yeah.
Again, we talk about competition breeds success. And if your 5th guy is Charlie Jones or Andre Yoshivas instead of Trenton Irwin, I think you're doing really dang good, especially if you deal with those injuries to guys like T or more injuries to Charlie Jones, or God forbid something happens to Jamar. You feel much better about your depth.
All right, Joe, I want to ask about the AFC North because we twice said, hey, the Steelers are jumping right back in response to what the Bengals have done. Give me an idea of where you think the AFC North and the early picks in the first and first half of the 2nd round have been in relation to what the Bengals are doing.
Yeah, obviously, I think the big one is that we got 2 offensive linemen go with Amarius Mims, we talked about enough, but you'll get that comparison to Troy Fautanu, the tackle from Washington that goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers shortly after. Whenever division rivals take the same position, and some people are going to be like, well, I like this guy better than that guy. We're going to have to keep an eye on both careers and see how that plays out. I was much higher on Amarius Mims than Fautanu, so I think I'd rather be in our position. And really the only other pick that really worries me a little bit, I think Nate Wiggins is a really good corner. And for the Ravens to get him at that spot, you're talking about a 6'2" guy that's fast and a really good man-to-man cover guy. His only issue is really he's a bit thin. Otherwise, I thought he was a top 20 prospect. And then the Browns just had their first pick. And so the Bengals go Chris Jenkins. Then you get a division rival going at the same position with Michael Hall, defensive tackle at Ohio State. Bengals go with the run stuffer they go with the pass rusher. That should help them. They haven't had an interior guy to really wreak havoc on us. It's mostly been the ends and Myles Garrett, and they've gotten their way into the Bengals offensive line, but now they add a little bit of juice inside. So that could be something.
Joe, it is amazing how Baltimore continues to put the bat on the ball, though, with respect to defensive players at every level. Defensive line, linebacker, on the back end. I mean, their secondary, I think, people don't give them a lot of times their just due because the front seven has been so dominant over the years. But, man, they get people that play well on the back end. Now, granted, it's easier when you're getting the kind of pressure, that they get in Baltimore, but they do a hell of a job of drafting for that defensive football team and that structure defensively.
And you know what they really didn't have on the back half? As good as their secondary was, Geno Stone wasn't the fastest guy. Kyle Hamilton's not the fastest. Give me the slot corner, Evan. Their corner.
Who? Marlon Humphrey?
Marlon Humphrey, thank you. Not the fastest guy, right? So getting a Nate Wiggins and adding that 4.3 speed to their secondary, I put you on the spot. I knew you'd get me.
That's right.
But adding some speed is really what they needed on the back half. So that's a really good fit for them.
Guys, in talking about war rooms, how much of this, because we want to assess, all right, how's the AFC North doing? Does this play into minds on draft boards of we're playing for our division within this draft, or is that way down the list of priorities of saying we have to play the Browns and the Ravens and the Steelers, and so we need to draft in this way? How much does that actually figure in the numbers?
It figures in. I mean, worst case scenario, it's a tiebreaker. In best case scenario, you have a guy or multiple guys where, boy, the way he plays football fits our division perfectly. And that's what you're looking for. You're looking for that kind of a marriage from a player, performance standpoint, and how easily will he fit and how coachable will he be and all those sort of things. Because honestly, you got to win your division.
Yeah.
Or you got to finish second in your division. I mean, the division, you play everybody twice. It's key in tiebreakers. I mean, you have to be able to compete in your division first and foremost. So that's a good point, Brad. I mean, and I'm not surprised it's a good point. Brad always brings up good points. But I mean, that's
every so often.
That's a definite factor in your evaluation. No question about it.
As we get ready for 80, and then you're going to pick again at 97, correct?
Yeah.
Do you assess yourself at the end of day two and go, okay, look, we've talked about all the love in the first two picks. By the time you get two more picks at the end of the day, do you reassess the board and say, we got more than we thought we're going to get, and now we're going to adjust it? Or is it strict in where you are, no matter what you've gotten by the end of day two?
I can tell you that after day one, the board reshuffling was uniquely challenging because, I mean, nobody, I don't care if you said, oh, I knew 14 offensive players were coming off the board before a defensive player was chosen. Baloney. I mean, when you have 6 quarterbacks taken in the first 12 picks, that has a ripple effect that it hits everybody's board, Right. I mean, it's so, yeah, I think one of the underrated factors in a successful draft is after day one, reshuffle your board in a proper manner. Same for day two, going into day three. I think it's a big deal. And that's part of the equation that I think Duke Tobin and his staff have done such a good job of over the years, to have a good draft from start to finish.
Everybody's going to grade at the end of the entire thing. We'll get final grades. You get grades daily. Are they grading themselves at this point and listening? Or how much, when we talk about we're going to keep the noise out of the locker room, are they keeping the pundits' noise out of the war room at this point?
One thing when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals, I think we never have to really worry about them listening to the noise.
I think that's pretty universal around the league.
If you wanted to add on that, Dave, a little bit, you have more insight than I do, but I think you don't have to really worry about them doing that. I really love the way this board has really shaped up for the Bengals, if I got to be honest with you. I mean, every war room mock draft that we did for State of the Jungle, we talked about attacking the trenches. Logan, one of our co-hosts, he's a big attack in the trenches type of guy. Yeah. And even the way you see this board shaping up right now, I still think the Bengals are going to have their pick of a guy, like, Joe's guy, Kingsley's still here. You got Cooper Beebe still here. And you have some still solid receivers that you can get some really good production out of, man. And I want to touch a little bit on what you talked about your division. I think maybe the Bengals, and this is not me saying anything that I know for a fact, but I think sometimes it's easy to get ahead of yourselves, especially when you find yourself competing at the highest level in the AFC. And, getting back to basics is important. Being able to win football games in your division is important. This is a team that won one game in their entire division this past year. That can't happen. That, it all starts, let's get back to basics, what they said. What was the hashtag? Rule the jungle, right?
Yeah.
Rule the North, rule the A. Like, you have to take care of business at home. My dad has a great saying he always says, and it's a shout out to him. He says, how can you cut someone else's grass if your grass isn't cut? And what I mean by that is, how could you focus on winning the Super Bowl and going to the AFC if you can't even win
In your
multiple
division.
games in your division? So Bengals getting back to basics, understanding that, hey, listen, it starts in the trenches. Man, you couldn't have asked for anything better.
A guy like Joe Goodberry, I know you bust your butt looking at tape, and you have your board, and you guys have your boards.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think teams around the league, when they invest all this money in a general manager and scouts and spend the whole damn year setting a board, worry about what the media says about what they should do? You guys don't. I mean, you guys have your opinions. You guys set your boards.
Right.
It's like, I don't, that's fine. They can have their opinions. Everybody's entitled to their opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no two boards alike in the National Football League. And that's why the old saying, it just takes one. I mean, one team pulls the trigger and other teams are like, what? And, it's like, okay.
Cole Strange with the Patriots a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, we'll find out 3 years down the road. We'll find out 5 years down the road. And that's the Mims evaluation. It's not necessarily a 1 year thing. It's 3, it's 5. What's it looking like? And so now it's like, you look at what the Falcons did at quarterback. I mean, if I'm an 8-year player on that football team, I'm like, man, I was really good with Kirk. We're close to making a run in the playoffs. We could have used another player. I'm not going to be around for the 3 to 5 year development of this kid. Penix, I want to get it done now. And then the young guys, man, I'm going to be around when Penix takes over. Now it's a division of the team, and there can be a ripple effect there. I mean, there's a lot of things that, it's the domino effect. The first one falls, and all of a sudden, oh man, I wasn't expecting all of that secondary action.
Joe, you want to jump in on?
Yeah, I want to
because there's so much chatter. You're saying they don't listen to it.
Yeah, I want to recreate the Duke Tobin. I want him to say, "Who the hell is Joe Goodberry anyway?" After I criticize the pick, that would be awesome. No, they don't care. Even though, I send it to them every year. I don't think they care at all. But I just seeing it across the bottom here.
Joe, I bet they look at it. I'm serious. I bet they do.
I appreciate that. Baltimore Ravens select tackle Roger Rosengarten, Washington. Man, the Baltimore Ravens know how to draft and know how to let the board fall to them. That is their starting right tackle at pick 62, and he is a good one. He's a young guy with good length and athleticism. Washington had a lot of true pass set situation, and I thought he answered the bell every time. Really, only bad game was that last one against Michigan where they were down, and Michigan's just teeing off on him on the end. Otherwise, I think Roger Rosengarten's a starting right tackle in the NFL.
Joe, you just made mention of a famous quote from Bill Tobin.
Mm-hmm.
When he picked on Mel Kiper. Who is Mel Kiper anyway? I got a garbage collector that knows more about the draft than Mel Kiper, whatever. Unfortunately, we lost the great Bill Tobin. And the timing of it right before the draft, where he made his name. And I'm telling you, around the league, Bill Tobin's name is spoken with reverence. Yeah. I mean, this guy was the guru. I mean, he was unbelievably well respected, and thoughts and prayers go to Duke Tobin and and his family and the friends of Bill Tobin, which were extensive because we lost a great guy that had an impact in the National Football League for a long time. First time I met Bill Tobin was Senior Bowl in 1973, and there's Bill Tobin down there in Mobile, Alabama, right at the front. We're doing pass rush drills, and I'm going against Too Tall Jones and all these owners and GM stuff. And there's Bill Tobin, the head of the pack. I mean, the guy was one of those guys who it's like, I'm going for it, and he had a major impact on the game of football, particularly at the National Football League level. And And Bill Tobin, you'll be missed, my man.
And he will be remembered well. It's probably a good time. Can we spin? Because I think it's probably that time. We still have a bunch of gifts to give away. So if you got in on hashtag Joe Goodberry, you are up for a bucket hat. We got a couple of bucket hats to give away, a black and a white. Spin, my friend. We're going to give one each. There you go. So we'll go twice. All right. You guys want to pick which one we're doing right now, the black or the white?
It's black and white, Brad.
Let's do the white one.
All right, this is for the white bucket hat. Dominic Mazzaro.
Congrats, Dom.
There you go, Dom.
Dominic, a fine Irishman. I love you, man.
All right, and now for the other bucket hat. Hashtag Joe Goodberry. The spin is alive, and the winner is MJ.
Huh.
Michael
Man,
Jordan?
There could be a
Michael
lot of
Jordan?
MJ.
Michael Jackson?
MJ, appreciate you tuning
Congrats.
in. Appreciate you tuning in. And this is our next giveaway.
Whoa.
Ooh, can I get my name in that one?
Yeah, there's a winter jacket.
Yeah, that's down, isn't it? A little down action?
Yeah,
no?
you want to feel?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Huh? That's waterproof.
That's waterproof.
Let me
Gonna
jump in the
keep
chat
you
real
going.
quick. What's that hashtag? Yeah, let me go ahead and spam that real quick a couple times.
Bengals. How'd we come up with that? Hashtag Bengals is where we are right now. So, Paul, I see you sticking up Joe Goodberry. I'm sorry, we're past that now. Hashtag Bengals coming up for that jacket. And that's a beautiful jacket.
Oh, yeah.
All right, as the Bengals get ready to go.
Our rivals are on the clock.
Okay.
Our AFC rivals, the Kansas City Chiefs, are on the clock.
How are the Chiefs doing here? Since we pay attention to what the Chiefs are doing nowadays.
They basically just drafted an absolute speed demon yesterday in Xavier Worthy.
Yep.
And the Bills trade with him. And yeah, man, I think that he, you look at the mold of the wide receivers the Chiefs typically go after. Xavier Worthy fits that mold to a T, and I'm scared. I'll be honest with you, I'm scared.
They just keep getting better.
I mean, just the need for speed is kind of crazy. I'm really curious, Joe. What were your thoughts on the Xavier Worthy pick?
Great for them. Obviously, in that offense where they're going to get him open, they're going to scheme him open. They're going to get him the ball in space. They've lacked the speed since Tyreek Hill was gone. They went from a team that was getting cloud coverages only to you could man them up the last couple of years without Tyreek Hill. And I think this is going to give them a weapon. Imagine if they were adding a John Ross talent to Andy Reid, a Pat Mahomes type speed. You would think that guy would pan out with a much better opportunity there in that offense with that quarterback. So he's better than Ross, I think, in a lot of ways. He's tougher. He runs, like you see him on punt returns. He runs right at guys sometimes, almost I'm like a crash test dummy. I worry if he's going to come out the other side, and he does every time. I'm like, all right, the guy's got toughness for being a slight, slender guy.
Joe, they did it. They did it. They
What?
drafted Kingsley, the Chiefs.
Of course,
They drafted
did, yeah.
Kingsley.
Wow.
They're rich kid richer, man. I mean, they just find a way. I mean, it makes sense, right? They had they're set at the guard spot, but they came under a lot of fire with their tackles. Obviously, this year. I'm curious, Joe, where do you think Kingsley projects more? Because I know there's some people who think he could play guard. There's some people who believe he could play tackle. Where do you think he slots in?
Yeah, you know what? Sometimes I think play style affects the way we view these guys because he's 6'4.5" at 326. He's got 34.25-inch arms, 82-inch wingspan. So, he's got the size of a tackle. I think his over-aggressiveness, sometimes his forward lean, he can get him in trouble a little bit. And I think sometimes we want to put those guys with less space, let them go inside, play guard. But I think he will develop. He's one of the younger tackle prospects in this class, only 21 years old still. He has a chance to develop into a starting tackle for them.
That's the thing is you look at what teams do, in my opinion, the second and third round are money rounds in a lot of cases. The two best quarterbacks in Bengals history, Boomer Esiason second round, Kenny Anderson third round. Of course, Joe Burrow is the first pick of the draft, and his storied career isn't over yet. Carson Palmer was the first rounder, but obviously his career didn't last as long here in Cincinnati as everybody had hoped. But my point is, the two guys that led the Bengals to Super Bowls at the quarterback position were not first-round draft picks, and there's a lot of I was at a party at Paycor Stadium, a draft party on the first night last night, the first round, and Tim Krumrie was there, And I'm telling you, when I heard Mims talking about practice is harder than games, after Tim Krumrie was drafted in the 10th round out of Wisconsin, man, I was going into my 8th year as an offensive lineman, had to go against that kid every single day of practice, and he is coming like a banshee. And I'm like, Tim, man, I'm 30 years old. You know, I can't go like this. I'm playing like 200 games.
It's practice.
Yeah. Can we, if I play football, there is no, coaches are saying it's half speed. I'm like, Tim's supposed to be half speed. There is no half speed. I'm like, oh my God. That practices were harder than games when you were going against Tim Krumrie. I mean, that's the type of player that can lift and impact an entire unit, an entire defensive unit, and an entire football team with respect to toughness, man. It's a big ripple effect.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay, so I mean, yeah, looks like I'm trying to verify. It looks like the Niners might have went Renardo Green here. Just trying to
That's a good
verify
pick.
that.
I like Renardo. I think he's a great value here at the back end of the round.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, has anything shocked you guys in terms of some of the prospects that are Troy Franklin? If we're following that, Troy Franklin's
That's
a guy
the
that
surprising
fell,
one.
fall into the 3rd round. Cooper Beebe. I mean, I think we all expected him to be a 3rd round selection. Trying to think, there's some other guys out there, still there for the taking.
I'm sorry. Did you guys think Leggett at the end of the 1st round, and now you have one that probably could have been in 1st round who's going in the 3rd? It's like they transposed the spots that everybody thought they might go, and like we've been saying, it just takes one, But
that was the worst pick in the 1st round.
Sorry,
that was the worst pick in the 1st round. Leggett.
Yeah, I mean that one. I mean, I 3rd round maybe. Do you think, Joe?
I was going to say age and breakout, age adjusted production, breakout age, all the things that you want to see generally from a 1st round prospect. He did not tick a lot of those boxes.
Yeah.
As good as the 1 year was, and if you watch the highlight reels, it's fantastic. But there is definitely some more rawness there for a guy who's going to be 24 pretty soon. Again, the production this year was good, but it is a 1 year wonder. You still need some development on the release and the footwork a little bit. And also was another one of those guys who didn't have the most diverse route tree where you got more projection on top of already being older. And that's just a lot of red flags where 1st round is very bold.
Let me ask you guys, I'm not up to the speed with the draft selections like you guys are at this point. Has any quarterback gone yet? I mean, don't you think another quarterback would have gone at this stage of the 3rd round, the way you had 6 quarterbacks go in the first 12 picks, and there hasn't been another damn quarterback taken yet? I mean, that's
I think it'd have to be like the
surprising.
Raiders, right? I don't know how many other teams are necessarily hunting, and at this point, do they feel the pressure to have to do that, to where they can maybe get some good players now, but just get the next best quarterback in the 4th or 5th round?
I guess nobody is going to follow the Atlanta Falcons policy. It's like, yeah, you thought we were set a quarterback. Hey, guess what? We got a surprise for you.
Hey, Joe, I just saw a comment come across wanting to know from you if you think that there'll be some more 3-4 looks with a 3 safety package coming up. Your thoughts on that?
Well, they did a lot of 3-4 stuff in the past, especially when they had DJ Reader at the nose tackle spot. Yep. That was something they would do, especially against run-heavy teams, Baltimore Ravens, some of the Pittsburgh Steelers. They would get in their 3-4 looks and run with that as Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson as stand-up edge guys. I don't think we'll see that unless they get a nose tackle. It's hard to run that unless you have that space-eating two-gap and nose tackle like they had in Reader. So we may see less 3-4 looks. What we may see, though, with the 3 safety packages, and they've done that before, whether that was Ricardo Allen during the 2021 year, Trey Flowers could be considered that, where he came in and covered tight ends and man coverage. That may be where you see Dax Hill still have a role in this defense in those looks.
Yeah, I don't know, guys. I think the less they put on Dax Hill's plate, the better off he's going to be. I mean, they had 82 plays of 20 yards or more they gave up last year.
Wow.
82 explosive plays of 20 yards or more. And some of it was physical, getting beaten, and that happens at a competitive level. But too many of them were brain cramps, guys running jailbreak. I mean, that has to be rectified, and that has nothing to do with the guy's measurables, his physical ability and everything. It's what do you got between the earlobes, man? I mean, it's football IQ, it's ability to think quickly, it's ability to make quick adjustments and all those sorts of things. I mean, we've been talking a little bit during the break, and Joe, what's your opinion on this? It's like Dax Hill, they're talking about playing him. outside at corner, slot corner. In my opinion, I have him covering a tight end. Then he can come off the edge. Then he can cover a tight end, simplify things, let him use his immense athletic ability. Don't overload him mentally with too much.
Yeah, so we go back to Michigan, what he was. And sometimes we see what guys do in college and we say, well, I think he can do this, or he's got the ability to do this and that. And what he was a box, strong safety, slot corner type of guy, right? Yeah. And he showed that ability, I think, even last year. He can blitz. He can play the run from the box area where I think he makes quick decisions. Yeah. I think once they said, hey, we're going to move him to free safety, and he's a guy who played, I think, 80 deep safety snaps that last year at Michigan. He did not have the experience at all. And then when you say, all right, we're losing Jesse Bates and Von Bell, we're going to pair you with Nick Scott, and he'll help you out with the communication stuff. And Nick Scott was a complete failure as a signing. I mean, nothing against the guy, but it didn't work out, and they had to cut him. Once everything was thrown on Dax Hill to be that free safety, I don't think that's where he should have played at all. So what can they salvage out of him now that they have Jordan Battle to be the strong safety? More than likely, they bring back Von Bell. Well, right, but you're gonna put him at corner. I don't think he's a boundary corner. To me, I let him do the Trey Flowers, cover the tight ends, and say, all right, you study Mike Hilton, and maybe you're going to be our nickel, going forward after Mike Hilton's gone in a year, because I think he can do a lot of that. And I think the way the Bengals use Mike Hilton anyways is kind of as a quasi safety as it is. So I think there's a role there for him.
I think a great blitzer, and he can tackle now.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's not afraid to hit people, between the hash marks in the middle of the football field, like you're talking about. It's a quasi, linebacker, safety, slot corner type role. I think that's a perfect fit. I agree.
The Jets traded up with the Panthers, I believe, and they selected Western Kentucky wide receiver Malachi Corley. So I wonder if this is the spot where we're going to start seeing some run of wide receivers. Joe, I want to hear what your thoughts are on the addition of Malachi Corley to the Jets.
Yeah, just Corley on his own is kind of a gadget slot guy, but he does have some thickness to him. I think you can do some of the Deebo Samuel stuff where you can get him in the backfield and give him the ball, give him on jet sweeps, let him run after the catch. I do think there was a lot of manufactured touches there, and you're going to have to do that. We see these guys every single year where it's like, I'm not sure he is running a full route tree and you can do more with him as a receiver. Is he just more of a gadget type of guy? Mm-hmm. And they don't tend to succeed in the NFL. Although I will say, I think in the red zone and on third downs, they gave him a lot of choice and option routes from the slot, and I thought he did well with that. So I think maybe that was the glimmer of hope of maybe he's a little bit more than just a gadget receiver.
Okay, guys, I'm getting old. I missed my afternoon nap. Is Baker still on the board?
Yes,
he is.
Yes.
I'm crossing everything, man. I'm crossing everything.
That's your guy? That's your guy?
I mean, I'd take him in the third round in a heartbeat.
I actually want to hear what you guys' guys are right now. So you're a Javon Baker
guy.
I
mean, that's a guy, if he's there in the third round, I think that's pretty good value for him. I really do. I mean, I'd be high on that bad boy. And it would fit, okay, offensive tackle, defensive tackle, wide receiver, cornerback. In my mind, those are the four spots in whatever order. I mean, if there's a better cornerback on the board when they pick in the third round, the first pick, go there, and then whatever happens in the second pick, the 97th pick, so be it.
Right.
Overall interior offensive line.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
I think let me looking at center and offensive guard, a compilation of some of these mock drafts. 8 of them in the third round, 7 in the fourth, 7 in the fifth, 6 in the sixth. There's plenty of interior offensive linemen, and I mean, you can get a quality interior offensive lineman in those rounds 4, 5, and 6, and there's plenty of depth there. I would not be, oh man, I got to go take the best interior offensive lineman right now. I wouldn't go there.
Yeah. You got a question for Joe from William.
William Perry already won an award now.
Yeah.
He wants it all, baby.
Come on, Fridge.
Fridge won one.
Fridge's refrigerator must be empty, man.
Now he wants to know, are there any small school undiscovered potential gems?
What do you think?
I think we're looking at day 3, guys. But, I got a guy here that I think, it's kind of when you open the William Fridge Perry and you look in the back and there's still one more drink back there that I thought we finished them all off. There, the guy in the third round. We got a guy from Canada, played with the Toronto Argonauts. Quintez Steger is a cornerback. This is a guy who went straight from high school to like some developmental, bum league, and then he sent his tape to the CFL, and they said, "Yeah, we'll take you." He wins Rookie of the Year, leads the league in interceptions. He's got ball skills. He's still young. He's athletic. He's succeeded everywhere he's had to go. He's still a young man, so it's still only 21, but he's had to be a professional the last couple of years. He is actually really, really good. And I think we're looking at a 5th, 6th round. Maybe he goes earlier. Maybe teams are seeing it like, yeah, this guy succeeds no matter where he goes. And if he's a 4th round pick, I wouldn't be surprised. But as we get down on this list of corners, they're starting to come off a little bit. You're getting guys that are either slot corners or maybe at best depth players. A guy like Quintez Stiggers would be a fun pick.
Joe, I got a question for you. Since we're talking about the smaller school mold, the Bengals obviously have a crowded defensive end room, right? But there's a guy, and I can't take credit for him. Logan put me onto this guy. Then I had to watch his tape, and he's a freak, and he really has piqued my interest. His name is Jalen Green. He's from James Madison University. The guy put up 18 sacks this past year. What do we always say about smaller school prospects? If you go to a smaller
man
school,
amongst boys,
yeah, we want to see you absolutely dominate. If
Right.
we're talking about a guy that absolutely dominated at a smaller school, this is what he did. 18 sacks. And what's the one thing we said about the Cincinnati Bengals? We need more juice at the pass rush department. That's not a pick that we're talking about here coming up here at 80, but for the later rounds. So what are your thoughts on Jalen Green?
Yeah, so he had an injury. He wasn't able to test, so that could probably keep him undrafted. Some teams may view him as a linebacker also. He's around 240 pounds. But, yeah, the Bengals had a lot of contact with him pre-drafts. Went out to his pro day, also sent the linebackers coach over there to have routine contact with him. I would see that as a priority undrafted free agent that I would not be surprised if they bring in.
The interesting thing would be when he goes up against a Latham or a Mims that have, octopus arms and quick feet. And I mean, it's all of a sudden those 18 sacks are like, man, it was a lot easier back there in the day. Some some young men can flip a switch and make an adjustment. And it's like, whatever level of competition, they can find another gear. And some are like, whew, these are real men here. This is a problem.
Hey, guys, well, I want to talk about pass rusher while we're on this, and I know it's something that you guys have talked about ad nauseum, but I think now is a time to talk about it with Hendrickson requesting a trade. And I hear stuff on the side. You guys hear a lot more, but it's these guys requesting a trade. They have a great year, and the Bengals aren't paying them. And it goes back to the old mentality of here's the way the Bengals front office pay the guy. Give me a take on Hendrickson setting the bar, raising the bar, new record, and being in that age bracket where he says, I've got to get mine. What's your take on Hendrickson and the request for trades now around the league focused on him right now?
Well, Trey Hendrickson is a competitive individual, no question about it, and he had an enormous year. But they just renegotiated his deal and made him one of the highest paid guys when they completed that negotiation. Mm-hmm. So, am I saying, all right, well, he went out and probably overperformed the current contract, but they just did it, and his agent wants to tear it up. You can't until a calendar year is over, 12 months. He wants it done, earlier than that. I mean, you got to read the fine print in every contract or whatever. Bottom line is there's going to be multiple cases of that on every football team. Yep. And Paul Brown used to say, okay, you think you're underpaid? You had a great year. You got to wait your turn. There's a bunch of other guys in this room that had great years as well. All you guys are under contract. No one put a gun to your head. You signed your contract. Your agent's okay with you signing your contract. Fulfill your obligation, And I mean, that's one side of it. The other side of it is, Trey, I had a hell of a year, and you did. And maybe some people would. He doesn't want it necessarily extended. He wants it like, I want more like right now. I want more up front. And with all the salary cap things that they're juggling at the wide receiver position and just paid a quarterback a ton of money. I mean, I guess every draft pick made the team last year, 8 of them. Maybe all 10 have to make the team this year to make Trey Hendrickson and everybody else in the team happy.
Yeah, I think there's also the factor of he's going to be turning 30 this year. Yep. They already don't like to give out guaranteed money into future years, and it sounds like he wants the long-term financial security, which is also kind of a weird kind of conflict of messaging there from his agent when he says, oh, we're considering retirement, but also we want a long-term deal. How is any team that wants to trade for you, if you request a trade, going to be like, well, we feel confident giving you a long-term deal if you're saying you feel like retiring all of a sudden, right?
Right.
So there's a little bit of that. And I think like you said, he's definitely deserving of earning more. And there is the argument that, you have the contract you signed, that you honor it. But we also know that teams don't always honor the full length of the contracts on the other foot too. So it's definitely a tough situation. And I don't know how much leverage he has at this point. Like you said, you still got to wait more time before you can actually rework the deal. And on top of that, you just drafted Miles Murphy to where you're like, hey, I love Trey. I want Trey to be a Bengal. I think he's very, very good. But at the same time, if he's asking for 22, 23 mil over the next 2-3 years, and you're sitting there saying, well, we drafted Miles Murphy as a contingency plan for situations like this,
Right.
I feel like the Bengals have the leverage in that scenario as opposed to Trey Hendrickson.
And guys, while we're talking about the edge players, I want to tip my cap again to Sam Hubbard. Played his ass off last year on one leg. I mean, Sam Hubbard played with an injury that 99.9% of the edge guys in the league would have said, done, time. He had it surgically repaired in the offseason. You talk about hobbling around and still playing at a very high level. Sam Hubbard is a stud, both physically and mentally. His pain threshold is ridiculous.
And there are guys that play it differently. Joe, I just wanted you to jump in on the Hendrickson stuff, and maybe in the trend of what about me that's going on in the league as we see over the last several years.
Yeah, so that brings up a point there that I actually wasn't thinking about. Hubbard playing through that injury. I would say Hendrickson did too, right? Remember there was one game that we thought his knee was taken out. All of a sudden he's back at practice the next.
Yep.
It was like, look at this guy. What a freak, right? So here's a guy that's putting it out there. Both defensive ends did definitely played with their bodies on the line. But you know what? That may be part of the security that he's talking about, where he doesn't have any guaranteed money left in him on this deal. We know how the Bengals do deals. They don't guarantee money past the first year. Even on the extension last year, there's no guarantees over the final 2 years of his deal. He's probably looking like, hey, if I get hurt, I'm turning 30. If anything happens, I'm not going to get anything out of this. It's good. It's you look around the league and more players are getting contracts that are not just 1 year, but 2 year guarantee, 3 year guarantees. I mean, there's quarterbacks that are getting fully guaranteed contracts. Kirk Cousins getting his second one. And I think players around the league look at that, and especially with the Bengals that don't operate that way. And they're probably saying, you know what? I would like that financial security. And I think we take it as long-term security, but I think long-term security comes in many ways, not just that, hey, that we'll pay you a good amount of money the next 2 years. It's don't worry, we'll take care of you if you're injured. And that's with injury guarantees or guarantees going in 2 years. And so I kind of get it why he's looking at this like, hey, even if on a monetary value I'm being paid well, I'm putting a little bit more risk than these other guys are.
And I think there is an advantage to the team too for doing that too, where if you pay out more money as the signing bonus, you are, for accounting purposes and cap purposes, able to spread that out among these years and kind of dip and fluctuate to get things to line up where, hey, we got a big cap hit for Jamar Chase this year. We're going to drop it for this guy this year. Like, I think that does offer the team more flexibility too. But again, obviously there's the cap versus cash conversation that we always kind of have, and how there's only so much to go around in that regard. And we know that that's just the way the Bengals do business. But you look at deals like the AJ Brown deal and how much guaranteed money he got. It's definitely difficult. It's going to be more difficult to operate that way going forward in the future for sure.
I just wonder how and how long Trey Hendrickson may consider withholding services. I mean, obviously that's the next step in this thing, and that's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds.
You may not have Trey or Higgins for all of training camp.
Yeah.
What did you want to say, Malik?
I was saying, speaking of pass rusher, a guy that we talked about on State of the War Room, Jonah Ellis, I believe, is still out there, man. He's still out there.
He is, and this is a really weird edge class because there's so many undersized guys. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys who are under 20th percentile on the series of edge in terms of height. Weight are all under the 10th percentile. They're all 240, 243, 245. So if you're not looking for that kind of undersized edge, or that's not the kind of build that you're looking for in these earlier rounds, I think that's why we're seeing some of these guys go down there, even though Jonah Ellis did have production, is younger, had a historic 3-cone, which is generally a very good predictor of being able to have that athleticism to bend off the edge and kind of produce in that manner. You just have to be comfortable with saying, hey, he's not going to give us that much in the run game or as much as we'd want. I feel like that's the story with a lot of these guys that are still left on the board.
All right, gentlemen, we got to give away. Yep. Sorry, I got to break for a moment. So you
Love
were
giveaways.
I saw somebody's comment saying I live in Texas, but man, I still want this jacket, and I get it. This is a fantastic looking jacket. So if you got in on Bengals, right? Isn't that our thing? So hashtag Bengals, all caps. Let's play. Let's spin the wheel. You only get one spin for our winner here, so let her roll.
Evan McPhillips. Come on. I would look like a James Bond villain wearing that thing.
And Chuck, 26-24, you're our winner. Congratulations.
I saw a John Harden. Is that James's brother, do you think?
It could be. Lap, did you sign this?
I don't know.
Yes, you did.
I?
That appears to be.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, I did.
That
I did.
appears to
That's
be
me.
your signature.
Yep.
So, Dave Lapham jersey, 62. So, hashtag Lapham. Why didn't we just go hashtag Lap?
I was hoping guys that we draft Latham so I could just take away P and add a T, or he could take away a T and add a P and be, brothers from another mother.
There you go. All right. Hashtag Lapham. Hashtag has to be in there. Lapham has to be all in caps. You got it spelled Lapham. That's our giveaway for the Dave Lapham signed jersey coming in. All right. So I interrupted. Malik, did you have something?
We're just about 10 picks away from the Bengals' next pick. The Chargers took Junior Colson out of Michigan. So we're looking at it, and it seems like Harbaugh got his guy. It seems like we have a question. We're going to get to
Joe doesn't look like a fan of that pick. No, Joe?
We've had a bunch of terrible picks like the last 4, so it's good for us. We don't want them.
Love it.
Really? give me the update, Joe. What's the deal?
So after Kingsley Suamate and Roger Rosengarten went around, what picks were those? 62, 63. We've had Renaro Green, who actually liked corner out of Florida State, Malachi Corley, which I don't know if the Bengals would have used correctly. The one I do like, though, is Trey Benson, running back out of Florida State.
Yeah.
He went to Arizona, so I think that's a fun pick. But 2 in a row, Brandon Coleman and Caden Wallace, 2 offensive tackles, 24-year-old rookies. They go to Washington and New England, respectively. Not into them at all. So add in Junior Colson. I was out on him as well. Andrew Phillips going down at the bottom here, cornerback, going to New York Giants. I thought he's a slot guy. We got no interest there. So we're good.
Joe, what do you think of Cade Stover?
I'm not a big fan of Cade Stover. I think he runs like William the Fridge Perry down here in our comments. Doesn't move too well. His production stuff. So I do use data in my film reviews, and the production data actually says, hey, take a shot on him in the mid rounds. He's got a lot of good production in terms of missed tackles forced and things like that you want, and getting yak at the tight end position. When I watched him, I thought he was incredibly boxy. You could tell he was a former, I want to say, linebacker or defensive end. He just is, he's still a bit raw. I don't think that's a tight end 1 type of guy.
All right, here's
so
a
he
tight
looked
end.
like an offensive or defensive line, being the tight end in the goal line short yardage package.
That's what he looked like, yeah.
There you go. Ty wants to know, while we're on tight ends, Tip Ryman in the 5th. He wants to know what you think of him.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we're talking. If you, as much as Amarius Mims is the first guy off the bus, if you wanted a tight end to be first off the bus, it'd be Tip Ryman. I mean, the guy is absolutely chiseled, cut, big, long, but he's a blocker only. I mean, even when you watch him, he looks like a robot trying to catch the ball. So that's why he's probably a 5th round pick. But hey, if you want a Drew Sample backup, and I think they probably do need a backup to Sample as a Y blocker inline guy, I think Tip Ryman could do that.
Now, there's a guy still on the board, guys, and he's considered a bit of a project. And I'm not really shocked, but I am kind of shocked because of how the league values tight ends. Jatavian Sanders is still sitting out here.
There's something up there.
Yeah.
Something's up. Somebody knows something, and it's gone around the league like a virus, man.
Yeah.
Something's off there.
I did want to touch on, sorry, Lap. I was just going to say, Joe pointed out that that Caden Wallace and Brandon Coleman here at the top of the 3rd round here was kind of, he wasn't happy with the quality of prospect there and that value. And that was kind of the advantage to taking tackle early, is unless you were going to feel comfortable taking Blake Fisher or Rosengarten at 49, this is the level of guy you're sitting there saying, gosh, I hope somebody falls to us. And suddenly these guys come off, and now you're like, oh man, like, is Christian Jones the next guy that you want? And right, I see Joe's face right there. And that was always my point, right? Is you feel so great about the depth at some of these other positions, interior offensive line, interior defensive line, corner, wide receiver, whereas tackle, yes, it was deep, but very much at the top. I feel like it was very top heavy, and that they got like the last elite potential tier guy. And I feel like that was another reason offensive tackle was such a great move in the first round.
Another offensive tackle just went off the board as well to the
goodness.
Cardinals. Isaiah Adams out of Illinois. So
Yeah.
we're starting to see offensive line fly off the board a little bit. Please don't touch Cooper. Please, just for right now, don't touch Cooper.
Some of the offensive linemen that I'd seen collectively in mock drafts that were mocked for 4th round are already off the board. So to your point, you know, top heavy, it got rated. Now it's like everybody else's value goes up accordingly. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you do see that interior offensive line. Cooper Beebe still on the board. Christian Haynes still on the board. You've got the linebackers that a lot of people are head over heels for, and Peyton Wilson and Junior Colson even. There's definitely a lot of players kind of falling, it feels like, in this draft for unknown reasons between Troy Franklin and Jatavian Sanders as well.
I was, you know, going to sleep, I'm thinking, man, I wonder if a run at linebacker is going to happen, you know, and if the run at linebacker happens, that makes it better for the Bengals because they don't have much interest in that regard, you know, until very late. And the run at linebacker just hasn't happened, you know. I mean, no run at linebacker, no run at safety, no, you know, it's like you're saying, Brad, where are the runs?
Yeah.
in the John, I guess.
I did say that we've luckily escaped those.
Yes.
The situation with running back and how it's changed now in the NFL. Do we have a running back situation where it really doesn't matter unless you've got somebody? I don't know, something that just jumps off the page at running back, that you don't have to deal with running back in the draft anymore? Is that what we're looking at?
I think that the running back market that we saw take place in free agency is indicative of how the league is viewing the running back position in the draft. We were saying that running backs aren't getting paid, and then what happened? The opening day of free agency, the first signing was a running back, right? And you see these guys getting paid money, and it doesn't seem like too many people are too high on this running back class, to be completely honest with you. I mean, some of the guys that people were high on, we have seen go off the board already, but I think that running back as a position, you know, at least when we have done the mock draft, and that doesn't really count for much because the draft system has been completely out of whack with all these quarterbacks and so on and so forth. But I think that as the draft progresses, you might see a lot of these guys fall into the later rounds, probably like never before.
I think the running back position is in an evolution of, okay, how good are you at blitz pickup? Can you catch the football? In today's NFL, those are two things you have to have. The talent of, yeah, man, I'm going to bend it back on that cutback. I'm going to make that unblocked linebacker miss. I'm going to make that safety miss as well. That's just like one component, and it's like, how many times are we going to do that during the course of the game, as opposed to how many times you're going to stick your nose in that linebacker's chest and pick him up and blitz pickup, or an edge guy if we're outnumbered on that side, or how good a route runner are you? Can you get separation? Can you catch the football? The running back position, I think, from an evaluation standpoint, is totally different than it was, you know, I don't know, definitely a decade ago, maybe less than that. You know, it's changed.
To add to that point, I think you see a lot less of the bell cow back type of backfields. And like you said, you have guys with different varying skill sets that you can use. And if you get that crossover where guys have multiple tools in their tool bag, then that's all the better. But at the same time, you don't feel like you need to spend premium assets on that anymore. And at the same time, man, like there's I think a mindset change too, where before it was, we want to get this good back and we want to keep him, we want to have him here. But now there's more of a, hey, we can just draft this guy and we don't necessarily maybe care about age as much if we just think we're going to run him into the ground, so to speak, in the first 4 years of his contract. And then we move on from him when he's 27, 28 years old and has all this different type of wear and tear on him, because then he's going to want 10, 12, $15 million a year. And that's just, it's a tough environment because there's just such a supply of good athletes who've played running back all their life, you know, grade school, high school. A lot of the best athletes get thrown at running back. And I don't want to oversimplify things because there's a lot of things like contact balance and vision that come into playing running back. But there's also just a factor of there are a lot of guys who are big and fast and have played running back a lot. And there's a lot of these guys coming out to where you can find these quality guys. Yes, you can reach on some of these guys in the early rounds like Ray Davis, Marshawn Lloyd, and even Audric Estime. But there's also guys at the end of the draft like Tyrone Tracy, who only played the running back position for a year and was extremely productive doing it, has the wide receiver background that you might want for guys coming out of the backfield, being a receiving threat, but also having great contact balance and size. Like, there's other ways you can go about the running back position. It's not so much we want the 21-year-old stud who had 600-700 carries in college anymore.
You know, it's funny. The running back position, not non-scientific for me. I went and polled some high school students, and I asked, running backs, how often do you get asked to the prom right away? And they don't. I mean, it's quarterbacks, it's wide receivers. It's trickled down to high school. Running backs aren't the guy anymore. When I was in high school,
How many
the
high
running
school
back
guys
was
did
the
you
guy.
ask this question?
I mean, the running back was the guy when I was in high school. It was like, and then in college, Marty Januszkiewicz, the Lackawanna locomotive. He was the guy, man. Not anymore.
Very interesting, Dave.
Not anymore.
That's a great study.
That's like the Andy Reid, right? You need a little more junk in the trunk to
That's right.
be better off. Hey, maybe there's something to that.
All right. The question comes out, and worth saying at this point, I suppose, as we move into the 70s and get closer to the Bengals pick at 80. Do you get to this point in the draft when we're talking about depth, Joe? And I'll throw it out to you. Do you trade up at any point for anybody? Are you in love with anybody enough at this point to trade?
So I still have the 23rd overall player on the board available, and Troy Franklin, who I said the Bengals should consider at the 49th pick. So if he's still there. So maybe there's an issue. I'd be doing some digging, some calls real quick. I'm wondering, hey, why is this guy still around? Because sometimes you don't have all the information. So let me call my buddy over on another team here and say, wait, what do you guys think, Troy Franklin? You know, is there an issue? We got something going on? And if it's clear, I mean, I'd be in consideration there, because I do think I do like Jalen McMillan and Javon Baker and Brendan Rice for third round, but I wasn't expecting Franklin to be here. So can I just sit here and wait and say, okay, maybe he'll be there in 5, 6, 7 more picks? Or at this point, it's a cheap trade up if you want to throw a 5th rounder at somebody and move up 4 or 5 picks and get a guy that's clearly above on my board if it was me.
Are Franklin and Baker still both there, guys?
Yes,
they are.
I mean, what the hell?
Right.
I mean, it's like, hey, how many people with less than 10 picks now or whatever between where we are now and how many people are in the wide receiver market? Do you have to move up, or do you think one of those 2 guys would be there for you when you make the selection and roll the dice that way? If not, do you feel good enough that there's a corner and now you put the wide receiver off until, the end of the 3rd round and see what shows up there? But it's going to be interesting to see how they proceed.
Joe's guy and TJ Tampa's still out there. My guy and Kyrie Jackson is still out there. But to the point of wide receiver, I don't think you have to feel the pressure when you've got Troy Franklin, Roman Wilson, Malik Washington, Javon Baker, Devontae Walker all still standing there.
Right.
I don't know if you need to feel that pressure, though. At this point, it might not take that much to move up if you really do feel confident about Troy at this point.
I agree with you guys. And, we talked a little bit earlier about the run on linebacker. It's not necessarily a run, but we did have another linebacker go off the board, and Trevin Wallace. So, I mean, that plays right into the Bengals' hand, obviously.
Brother, what's that? What's that, brother?
Hey, while you guys are making jokes, that's a couple Kentucky guys. So, that just went Andrew Phillips and Trevin Wallace. So you're probably offending a few watchers and listeners right here.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. This is State of the Jungle every single week.
All right. Does it make sense then, as we're 8 picks away, that we've got a wide receiver coming at 80?
Brad, for me, and I'm a little, I guess I'm just scarred a little bit here. It's between wide receiver, to Joe's point, Troy Franklin, and a guard here. Honestly, like I like BB. I don't know how Lap feels about it.
I'd go wide receiver or corner. I would.
Okay.
I'd go wide receiver, corner at this point. I mean, I think that there's guards available 4th, 5th, even 6th round.
Cowboys just took him though. So
what's that?
They just took BB. So
good pick.
Loading up on the trenches.
Makes our job easier.
He's got Pro Bowl upside. He's going to go in and play left guard for them. They've already drafted the right tackle last night in Tyler Guyton. They're going to move the former 1st-round pick to left tackle. Evan, help me out. He was playing left guard.
Tyler Smith,
Tyler Smith, thank you.
If we go wide receiver
left
here
tackle,
at
baby.
80, if we go wide receiver here at 80, Dave, how early are you drafting a guy like Zach Center? This is a guy, right? Everybody that I've talked to, had he been healthy, he'd probably have went in the second round, right? I mean, he's a guy that did it at the highest level at Michigan. And if you draft Zach Zinter, you probably shore up your interior offensive line for the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that there are offensive linemen, and as a former offensive lineman, I hate to say it, but from a value standpoint, if there's a receiver on my board that is worthy in the third round at either selection, I know I can get an offensive lineman in the fourth, fifth, sixth round. That if I believe my offensive line coach, if he has any kind of skill set, that and that's the thing that's going to be interesting to me is Anthony Munoz will be the first one to tell you the biggest or one of the biggest reasons that he had the success he had was Jim McNally. And now Mims is really looking forward to working with Frank Pollock, and they are going to be attached to the hip. Jim McNally and Anthony Munoz, they're attached to the hip forever because of the relationship those two guys had. And that's going to be an interesting one to watch with Frank Pollock and Mims. And I mean, everybody in that monster room, part man, part monster.
Yeah, Joe had a great scouting term earlier. He said arrogant hands. The Zach Zinter talk gives me a chance to bring up one of my favorite scouting terms is when you're a little bit light, you maybe need a little bit more sand in the pants.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? A little bit more sand in the pants. Get you a little bit more bulked up.
A little lead in the bottom.
Yeah, there you go.
Could you take your shirt off for me?
Yeah, right.
We're about to. Oh, okay. It's this shirt.
Let's see that six pack, man. You
There-
and Mims standing next to each other.
There we go. All right. So
The
if
six
you,
pack, oh my goodness.
we're continuing to give away and continuing past this, but this is our hashtag Lapham. If you got in, I'll give you a few more seconds. If you didn't get in, it's hashtag Lapham. Signed jersey from number 62, and roll it.
JR again?
JR.
JR, what's up with you, bro?
No, no, it wasn't a JR. It was a
MJ.
Other one was
MJ.
Oh, it was MJ.
MJ. Yeah.
All the initials out here. Yeah.
So it could very well be the same person by this time. But
Yeah, right.
I don't know. All right. Are we doing hashtag Super Bowl for this now? Hashtag
Ooh.
Super Bowl. Man, First Star Logistics, you guys are just too generous. How about this? Little Bengals, little
Ooh,
Bengals
how about
swag,
that?
little Bengals swag on your Oakleys.
Come on, Brad, model them. Put them on, big boy.
I
Let's
was
take a
gonna
look.
say, that'd be great for the
Oh,
Sunday
yeah.
game.
Look.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking
Did it
about.
get cooler in here all
That's
of a
what I'm
sudden?
talking about. 007 action.
Hashtag Super Bowl. And so these are pre-worn by Johansen.
Yeah, right.
And there's going to be a run on these.
You look ready to
So-
jump on a jet ski.
That's right. So these are your Oakleys. Hashtag Super Bowl, all caps. You guys are following directions very well tonight. So that'll be our next drawing. All right, what number are we at right
Braylon
now?
Trice goes
guys,
to the Falcons.
How about this? Everybody talks about, hands with receivers and defense back skill people. Hands have become a big deal with offensive and defensive linemen. Hand size, hand strength. Back in the day, 1974, couldn't use them, couldn't even think about it. Had to have your hands at your chest. You're trying to chicken wing people and all that. And then they allowed you to extend your hands a little bit, but you couldn't lock out your elbows, and you certainly couldn't use your hands. Now it's like, man, if you had these offensive linemen you're looking at, it's like not only do they have 36-inch arms,
They got
85-inch wingspan, they got 11.5-inch mucker.
Yeah.
And once they get those big clamps on you in the inside of the framework of the body and they lock you up, God, the hand size and hand strength has become a big deal in the evaluation process, man. It starts with the feet and ends with the hands. We talked about just about every athletic endeavor, hitting a baseball, shooting a basketball, even dumb offensive line play. Starts with your feet, ends with your hands, now that you can use them. And hands are a big deal, not just with the skill people. Defensive linemen as well. Got to have that hand strength, rip and pull, all the moves that you're going to be making. It's literally offensive and defensive line play has turned into hand-to-hand combat. That's the bottom line.
All right. Update us on picks, Malik.
So we're still waiting on the Chicago Bears to pick. But I will touch on this really quickly. Joe's guy is Troy Franklin. One thing I will say, one team I think we might be in competition with for him potentially might be the Denver Broncos. Remember, the Denver Broncos did go out and draft Bo Nix. They did also trade Jerry Jeudy. So there might be an opportunity.
Tim Patrick coming off injury too, I believe.
There might be an opportunity for them to pair, him with his old college quarterback, and I could certainly see that as a team that might jump the Bengals, which is fine. There's still a lot of good receiving talent still on the board for the Bengals, but I don't know. I just kind of put 2 and 2 together there. I think you feel good with how the board is currently, and you know who I'm looking at. I guess we're just giving a lot of Oregon love right now, but I am interested in Kyrie Jackson, man. I am interested in Kyrie Jackson. So I want
to, dude, man.
So I really want
that jersey so fast.
I want to ask Joe. Joe, what do you think? Where would you see a Kyrie Jackson fitting in this Bengals defense? I feel like the Bengals really loaded up on secondary, obviously more so at the safety position. But where do you see Kyrie Jackson coming in? Do you see him as a future starter for the Bengals? Do you think he could challenge year one for a starting job?
Yeah, I wouldn't project that. I'd see him more as your primary outside corner backup. While he does have the length, and you would think press man type guy with that size and length, he'd really disrupt some wide receivers on the line of scrimmage. I think he's more of an off zone guy that has really good, anticipation and ball skills, reading and reacting, which I think that there's value in that. So he's kind of, you get these guys once in a while that are 6'2", 6'3", and everyone thinks it's going to be the next Richard Sherman. But I think what made Sherman really, great was his intelligence and ball skills. So that's what you watch on tape, and you're wondering, do these guys have it? Is it dangerous to throw in their area? And I don't see that with Kyrie Jackson. I see him more as a depth player, but a guy that has the traits, and if he's got to play, he's at least a problem for some receivers when they got to line up against him.
Joe, this is a selfish question that I have for you, man. My guy, Dwight McLeodern. I need to hear you. Me and Evan have had sparring matchups. Evan's guy is Elijah Jones out of Boston. My guy is Dwight McLeodern. Who would you prefer? Who would you prefer out of the two, and why?
Out of who was the other one?
Dwight McLeodern and Elijah Jones.
They're very close. They're actually neck and neck on our board in terms of grade. 72 overall for Dwight McLeodern, 71.7 for Elijah Jones. If I were to split the tie there, Elijah Jones is 24 years old already. Dwight McLeodern is 22. One of the younger guys, Arkansas corner, McLeodern is one of the younger of the day 3, probably on the consensus big board. He's at 176. So I think we're expecting that range of 4th, 5th, maybe even 6th round for him. But he's 6'1.5", 185. And ran a 4.47. I like McLeodern a little bit more.
What about that athleticism, though, Joe? The vert, the broad, 7th and 9th percentile, 4.46 relative athletic score.
No, he's tight. You're right, but he's got the production, the market share of production that Elijah Jones doesn't have. Elijah Jones in the 49th percentile for tackles and ball production. Dwight McLeodern's in the 93rd percentile.
That's completely fair. That you're getting definitely a lot more out of the run game with McLeodern than you are with Jones. Absolutely.
Jonah Ellis just went off the board to the Broncos, so they did not take Troy Franklin. So they did not take Troy Franklin.
So are you saying that's pick 80?
It should be.
Listen,
go ahead, Malik. Jump.
You know what? I'll say it, man. If he's there, you don't want to see me jump, man. You don't want to see me jump.
Inquire under that vertical.
These knees are gone. You know what I mean? I'm done, man. I can't do anything. But I like that, man. I like it because again, you're leaving the Bengals with very good options at wide receiver. Will Troy Franklin make it to this pick? My producer for State of the Jungle and the Sit Down, Marissa, is not the biggest Troy Franklin fan, and we literally spent 2 hours trying to convince her.
Seems like she's right. The league's agreeing.
The league's agreeing. I'm telling you, she'd make a great scout. She knows what she's talking about. She actually put me on to Dwight McLeodern. Respect to her. So, in all seriousness, I think that Troy Franklin could make a lot of sense for the Bengals here at pick 80, man. I just hope that he makes it here. I don't want it to be one of those scenarios like Byron Murphy where it's like, we're so close. And then it's like, oh man, it gets away from us. So I'm excited. I'm hopeful for Joe that he's there.
Let me ask you guys something. Burton, receiver out of Alabama.
Love him.
But again, when you looking at him, he was like a 4th round guy in a lot of the mocks that I combined. a lot of people had problems with character issues.
Right.
Are there character issues with some of these receivers that are still available that we don't know about, that other people around the league know about?
Maybe.
Why are these receivers there? I mean, I think Burton falls into this category with these other receivers as well. And it's like, maybe that's why all of these guys are still, being debated in draft rooms around the country.
And one thing you bring up when you say that, you might be cooking right there, obviously, Dave. But the one thing that makes me confident is that Zach Taylor, from day one that he stepped in as the Bengals head coach, he preached culture, culture, culture. Through this culture, you've made it to AFC championships. You've made it to Super Bowls. You've had a lot of success. So is it that time in the Zach Taylor era, right? And I'm curious to hear what Joe has to say about this. Mm-hmm. Is it that time where you are able to take a chance on a guy that may have some character concerns, some red flags, and you believe if you get that guy in the building and with that
everybody
culture,
else will draw him, bring him up.
They'll bring him up.
Joe,
it
your
takes
thoughts?
a village.
So if we only went off film, Jermaine Burton would be really high. And this is a guy that's, he's bounced around a lot. He's kind of known as a bit of a nut job. So teams are going to have him off the board. But you know what? Sometimes you need a little bit of crazy. We're talking about playing football here. But when we watch him on tape, we described earlier, we had a question about some inside-outside versatility guys that can play the slot, play outside, allow you to move Jamar Chase around a little bit. I think that's the reason why Tyler Boyd isn't here right now, because they want to be more flexible with the receivers and not just have a slot guy. Jermaine Burton is the poster child in this draft for that. You can put him inside, outside. He can go deep. He undresses guys, and he gets a straight downfield production from the slot. You want to get a speed slot. You want to threaten those two deep safeties with a guy running the post on him. Jermaine Burton will go up and make a play on that ball. Go ahead, Dave.
But what I'm saying is, we talked about earlier, the floor is the tape, a hell of a high floor. Mm-hmm. The ceiling character. Ceiling and floor getting tight, I mean, that's the reason that Burton and maybe some of these other guys are there. I mean, I don't know. I mean, usually when there's, like, everybody knows about Burton, like you mentioned, Joe, being a whack job, but I haven't heard anything about the other guys. I mean, it's like that's all been kept pretty quiet. If they're still available, it makes me scratch my head. What's the deal?
Well, I wonder if it becomes more quiet the later that it goes, because you're not talking about guys in the first and second round and guys, although some of the names that we've talked about have been graded much higher than they're sitting to this point.
Yes.
And I wonder how you keep that quiet long enough if every team knows this is a guy we probably need to push back. I don't know how that happens.
Well, eventually the value's right.
We're speculating.
Right.
Eventually with a pick lines up with where you see, like Joe said, I know there's Matt Harmon of Reception Perception who does a great job breaking down all the different route success that a lot of wide receivers have had. I think it was a late first on Burton just based off of the film. So again, you come back to here and you're looking at the back end of the third. I know the total yards don't look as good, but when you look at the targets, he had literally a third of the targets that Rome Odunze had. Rome Odunze had like 150 targets. Burton only had 54. Much more of the deep threat in the Alabama offense when they finally figured out their quarterback rotation 4 or 5 weeks in and said, okay, we're going to be a power run team and we're going to chuck it deep because Milroe's got a good deep ball. And he came along a little bit toward the end of the season. But in terms of yards per target, out of 39 draft eligible receivers that qualify, he was ranked second in yards per target. Yards per route run, he was ranked 11th out of 109 wide receivers. RAS 9.11, 4.45. 38-inch vert. And the thing is, the problem is his size, right? But that doesn't stop him from catching balls in traffic over the middle, catching in the red zone, high pointing the ball really well, and having a good timing on jumping for those. So I feel like the size doesn't necessarily show up all the time either, to where like I said, the film evaluation is just really nice. Sure, the breakout age is a little sketchy with kind of what's been going on and the off-field stuff, but you're starting to get to the point where, like you said, 4th, 5th rounder, you're starting to be like, man, do we just take a really good guy who has that inside out versatility, and wherever we got to go, as soon as T leaves, okay, well, I think he can be really good from the slot. I think, he was just used as this downfield guy.
My question is, does it seem like the entire league is adopting the philosophy of, you know what?
Yeah.
We don't want to disrupt our team with there always were, like the Raiders in the old days and whatever else. Oh, that guy, he's a renegade. He's a Raider. He's this, he's that team. It seems like with the popularity of the league, increasing, there's more inventory. There's a big demand, but there's a huge supply as well. So it's like, let's not take a chance on giving the NFL a black eye.
Well, let me ask you something on that, Dave, because if you had an offensive lineman with some serious question marks, but you have Mike Munchak or Dante Scarnecchia as your offensive line coach, you probably feel more comfortable with that, right? With these wide receivers and Troy Walters, exceptional amount of respect and a track record of developing
Former
these
player,
guys. Right. Do you feel like the Bengals are uniquely equipped to handle some of these wide receiver projects?
I think it's not just the coach. I think it's the room, like we talked about before. If you only have, one guy that everybody has to work to uplift them, you're in good shape. If you, if you put too many bad apples in the bushel, the whole thing can rot. But if you can get that one, identify that one bad apple and cut out the bad part of it,
smooth out the edges
and
a little
change
bit,
it around.
so to speak.
Have the entire position group lift one guy instead of having one guy take down the entire position group.
We're officially 2 picks away from the Cincinnati Bengals. The Raiders went with an offensive tackle here.
Oh, goodness.
There's a trade that just took place. The Texans just traded up. Gonna try to find out who they traded up to get, and if it impacts the Bengals at all.
Can I jump in then?
Absolutely, Joe. Sorry about that.
So say they don't want to go with the guy that's got character issues and they still want to stick at receiver. One guy that I think would be a great fit, and they had a top 30 visit with him, is Jalen McMillan out of Washington, who has inside-outside versatility. We talked about him when you guys stepped away when I was with your crew, that he can do some wildcat stuff for you too as well. He scored off that running right up the middle. So he's got the toughness. He'll block. He'll go up and get the ball. He's got good route running, very smooth player. I could see them going in that direction at wide receiver also. And we've only had one true nose tackle go off the board with Devondre Sweat, went a little early. I think the Bengals still do want a nose tackle.
Yep.
Dave, you brought him up earlier. I wouldn't be surprised if McKinley Jackson, a 2-time captain, while we're on the other side of the spectrum of the guys that, might be more of the Zach Taylor mold and what he's tried to bring in, the 2-time captain at Texas A&M as a nose tackle, young player. McKinley Jackson would make a lot of sense, either 80 or 97.
Joe, you talked earlier about small school guys. What do you think of a guy like Christian Boyd with a little bit more heft to him in these later rounds? Do you feel like that might be an option or an alternative to guys like McKinley Jackson?
Yeah, they brought in and had contact with a lot of nose tackle types. I think the small school guys are tough sometimes to watch on film because you're like, all right, take care of your competition. And they usually do. That's the reason why they're talked about getting drafted. But even for them, I feel like they had him off the line a little bit more, giving him some space to really toy with interior offensive linemen a little bit. I think anytime you get to day 3, and we're talking about potential nose tackles, they're a bit of a flip of a coin. You're not sure how these guys are going to hold up in the NFL style. Can they add the weight, the strength, the power, and play their role and just be a part or be a cog in the wheel, right? They just have to do their job at the nose tackle spot. And I think that's hard to project sometimes.
All right, we're moving closer. The Texans pick is in at 78. Bengals getting ready at 80. You guys continue to say it's not, I don't care, but it's like, all right, we're going to be fine with whatever. I mean, here we are at 80, and the Bengals are in the slot where they go, all right, if we get a wide receiver, all right, if we got somebody on the line, okay.
You feel good.
Are we really?
I'd be good wide receiver, cornerback,
You keep saying corner. Who's our corner at 80? That guys. Who's our best corner at 80?
TJ Tampa, is that it, Joe?
Tampa's not at 4.58 though. Those guys got to go to safety eventually.
I mean, he's a lot of mocks had him pretty high in the second round. Though,
how many corners have we seen survive over that 4.55 mark? Isn't it Levi Wallace, Josh Norman, and that's the list?
And those are rare guys, and you don't want to play in that bucket too often.
Levi Wallace was undrafted, and Josh Norman was what, 5th, 6th round pick?
Yeah.
DJ James is gone, right?
No, but I think he's more of a nickel though.
Yeah, but I mean,
and the Colts just traded up as well for the Cardinals pick as well. So
to me, the next one is at corner. If we're just looking at corner specifically, Chris Abrams-Drain from Missouri, but he might even also be he split some time in the slot as well.
Yeah, I do like his ball production a lot, though. Good forcing completion rate, good passer rating when targeted, 11 pass breakups, 4 interceptions.
You seem to be hemming and hawing, so it doesn't seem like a corner is a pick at 80 right now. There's somebody you're in love with at 80.
More like 97, Joe?
Yeah, and I think the Bengals are in a good position to let the board fall to them. I don't want them to reach on anyone here just to fill needs. They filled their 2 primary needs or their wants in the first 2 rounds, and I'll let it fall to you. If you want to hit a home run, be a 2012 draft, remember that. They allowed guys to just fall to them, get Mohamed Sanu in the 3rd round, getting guys like Marvin Jones, George Iloka in the 5th. You let the board fall, and you take these guys that are high on there still.
Is there a tight end that would fit the bill at 80? I don't see one.
It's just Jatavion Sanders. And as soon as he ran that slow 40 and didn't work out well, you have to be an athlete if you want a tight end one. It's a very strong historical trend with athleticism traits at tight end. And when he didn't hit it, it's going to put him in a bucket of guys that got to be outliers.
Texans took Kalen Bullock, a safety out of USC at 78.
Oh, that's good. Bengals weren't interested in that.
Yep.
So
looks like the Colts have traded up to try and jump in front of the Bengals, if that's correct. Yeah.
Yep.
So Kalen Bullock safety went off the board for the Texans.
So
now the Colts are on the clock.
Would the Colts go Jatavion Sanders here? We know that they liked Brock Bowers, right? I mean, if they're trying to load up on that Colts offense, it would make a lot of sense.
I think they could really use a boundary receiver that can offer them a deep threat. As much as people liked Alec Pierce as a fun prospect.
Remember Mitchell.
Remember they drafted,
oh yeah, they did. They did.
Mitchell,
You're right. Okay, so maybe they are looking at Jatavion Sanders as kind of that Brock Bowers consolation prize.
Yeah.
My fingers are crossed that they're taking Cade Stover right now.
Yeah.
Oh, breaking a lot of Ohio State fans' hearts here.
We just Cade Stover's parents just reached out and they get problems with us, boys.
Who is Joe Goodberry anyway?
Well, that was fast. They says their pick is in already.
Hey, when you trade up, when you know,
right? That's what they say.
They took Pittsburgh offensive tackle
Matt Goncalves.
Matt Goncalves.
Right. No interest.
Again, this is every tackle that gets picked after like the middle of round 2. I just keep laughing. And
why did they move up to make this pick in front of the Bengals? I mean, this isn't a guy the Bengals would go after.
It's a good question. Maybe they looked at the Seahawks and the Cardinals coming up and said,
right,
we feel good about this guy.
Yeah, I got to jump ahead of maybe they asked the Bengals if they wanted to trade back, and the Bengals said, no, baby, no. Who knows?
Okay, we're next.
Here we go.
Who is it? Go ahead, Joe. Give me your pick.
It's Jermaine Burton, and they're going to take him, and they're going to go off the board a little bit. And
I'm with you.
And they're going to take a guy with some characteristics, and it's not the way they normally draft wide receivers either. But like we said on tape, what a dangerous weapon this guy is! Absolutely like fun. Just put on some tape.
I'm telling you, man.
Type in Jermaine Burton versus on YouTube, and just sit back and have a beer, have a good time.
The dude can play.
Wow.
The dude can play, but man, Shevitz.
Listen, my guy from Trevor Sikkema from PFF, he literally told me, he said, this is my 10th ranked wide receiver in the draft class. Everybody had questions about him because of the character concerns. And we talked about it on State of the Jungle, and everybody ripped us for the pick. They said, this is a horrible pick. Granted, we did draft him in the second round, so you guys might be right. But, man, did we get a dog. I mean, I'm happy now.
You know what?
Hushmanzada,
who's a friend of First Star Logistics. He hung out in the First Star Logistics suite. He's making the 3rd round pick, man. So this is just beautiful altogether, man.
Who went in the 7th round himself and kicked some tail.
Man.
I'm telling you, they would have gone with Sweat. I think Sweat would have been a candidate. If he didn't go off the board, Sweat would have been a 3rd round candidate. If they thought, hey, we think about him there, why not think about Burton in the same way? I mean, if they feel like they can handle Sweat, who wants to be the life of every drinking party there is in the United States of America, why not go with Burton? I mean, the life of the party. Sweat, he's going to be sweating it out, man.
No, if you feel great about where you are with the character, like we said, with the wide receivers coach being so good at developing these guys, with having great leaders in the locker room and Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and all these guys who can command respect probably more than you could in the college ranks. Just looking at the on-field stuff, man, he's got great change of direction. He's got a good release package, can attack all levels of the field in different ways, has good route nuance with head fakes and attacking leverage and shoulder, just all the small things that help you get open and create separation. And he was 90th plus percentile in receiving grade versus single coverage versus man coverage versus on yards per route run, 0 drops, great hands, especially even on these deep targets and contested catches. That is really big. And if you go back and watch his tape, he is a weapon over the middle in the red zone, and he is willing to be physical and take hits.
I'll tell you what, last week when I was doing on the podcast in the trenches with Dave Lapham, I was like, all right, what are my 4 positions? All right, offensive tackle, defensive tackle, wide receiver, cornerback, and listed them in that order, not necessarily thinking it might be in that order, but in my mind, cornerback now with that 97th pick. I mean, I think those are the 4 positions to address. And so far, I'm living my dream
You are.
draft.
Well-
I got off with 3 out of the 4 right now.
We're looking at the picture of the Bengals war room, and there is some happiness going on.
Oh, Zach just slammed his hand down,
Big time.
smiling. Listen, guys,
Quarterbacks love targets like that.
Oh, man.
Joe, can I ask you a question real quick?
What's
Because
up?
this is something that came up in our conversations about Jermaine Burton. So T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd both around 4 yards after the catch, not really giving you a whole bunch in the last year or two, right? But then if you look at Jermaine Burton when he was playing maybe about 40% of his routes in the slot with Bryce Young, he was averaging up over 5 yards after the catch. And then when he got relegated to this deep shot role that didn't lend itself to as many of the yards after catch opportunities, do you see him filling in this slot role right now while T. Higgins is on the boundary and offering more athleticism and yards after the catch potential than we did get previously from Tyler Boyd?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the driving force here. I think we saw a bit of it or them hint towards it when they drafted Charlie Jones last year in the 4th round. Like, hey, we'd like to get a little faster in the slot, right? We got 2 split safeties constantly over top of us. Let's try and beat them down the middle if we can. Even I think of the Jake Browning missed deep ball against the Vikings where Charlie Jones comes up short. We started to see more speed slot options out of that position when they started rotating Charlie Jones in. And then you get to the offseason here, they let Tyler Boyd walk. And the whole time I'm thinking, okay, 2 things this offense really needs. Let's protect Joe Burrow. But number 2, they really don't have enough yak guys. If you're going to play cloud coverage against them, all right, let me get some guys underneath that can run and make you miss and do some damage that way. And Jermaine Burton definitely fills that. He is a very fun player to watch on tape. We talked about runs so many times tonight. The runs that we should have been talking about are the runs these cornerbacks have when they line up against Jermaine Burton and he comes off that line and he rips off the line and you can see them instantly panic. Like, I like that when I watch him film, whether it's in the O-line, D-line, trenches where you're covering a guy, if you instantly see a little bit of fear and panic and just erraticness from the guy covering the wide receiver, you can tell they can see his movement skills and they're like, okay, this guy's a little bit different.
You know, it's like Burton combining a lot of the mocks again. I had like the number 1 guy in the 4th round. Okay. Well, obviously he slipped because of the character issues deal. The best talent that was there and really he gets selected. What is the deal with Franklin and Baker? I mean, what do you think the deal is? Not just with the Bengals, but everybody else in the league that has a need at the wide receiver position. I mean, I think that Zach Taylor and everybody in that coaching staff feel like the position coach, the position players at wide receiver, Joe Burrow at quarterback, you know, everything else that's going on with the organization, like we talked about, they can help this guy get over his issues. Dude, he racked up those numbers at Alabama in the SEC.
Yep.
We're not talking about Podunk U in some, backyard league, man. We're talking about the big time.
Well, and after he transferred from Georgia.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Nick Saban just said there's a difference between playing with emotion and being emotional. Perfect quote. Saban loved the pick. Like, when I say Jermaine Burton is a true difference maker, guys, I'm head over heels right now. I'm really excited about this pick, being an Alabama Crimson Tide fan.
And I get the off-field stuff that people talk about, but when people bring up, when he was a high schooler, he committed to a college and then decommitted. It's
we have to be careful when we say the off the field stuff, because you obviously had the issue with the fan situation. The fan ran into him when, there's
but then
people,
it's more him jawing on the field. And it's do you have to worry about some taunting penalties and probably dial back that uber competitiveness? But that's part of the dog in him, right?
My thing is, everybody in the world's not the same personality.
Yeah.
And if there's more than the same type of person, like, oh, that guy's different. He beats to it. Different drummer, man. That guy's an oddball. It's not like he's robbing a bank, an alcoholic, a drug addict. We're talking about, some behavioral stuff. It's not like, this guy is, it's like his character's irreparable or whatever. I mean, hey, they felt good about the fact that everything, when they interviewed him and in his competitive nature and everything else, sometimes guys can't turn off that competitive nature when they get off the football field. And as they grow and mature, they learn to do that. If Nick Saban gives a player a thumbs up, if I'm a coach in the National Football League, that's good enough for me, man. It's good enough for me.
You talked. I'm sorry. I was just going to say real quick. You talked about with Mims going up against the best talent all the
Yeah.
time. He's going up against Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terrion Arnold all the time in
Right.
practice. And
Right.
He's doing good jobs at it.
And before that at Georgia, national
Right.
championship. These are national championship caliber programs that have studs everywhere.
Okay, so to your point, which is what we're seeing in continual love from the people who are streaming, Mims, Jenkins, Burton,
Man.
are they day one ready guys that we've got in the first 3 picks of this draft?
The first thing that comes to mind when you list those guys, Mims, Georgia, Jenkins, Michigan, Burton, Georgia, and Alabama. The Cincinnati Bengals continue to go to big programs that have won at a high level at these major programs. I think that's the easiest athlete to say, can he transition to the National Football League? I mean, to me, these guys all played in AAA, and you bring them up to the big leagues, So do I think they project at some point to – I think all 3 of them project to contribute.
Day one.
Yeah, day one. Well, how many snaps will it be as a, quote, starter? Will it be a equal rotation? All of them are going to impact this football team. All of them are going to have something to say about how many snaps are divided amongst their position group.
We just had a quote up about Hushmanzada saying how much this pick meant to him because he actually trained Burton. But guys, I want to touch Tip Ryman. We just was talking about this guy in the 5th round.
Right.
He just got drafted by the Cardinals.
Is that right?
Yeah,
I'm not a Tip Ryman guy, man. I
Yeah.
think he does have that like tight end 2 upside if things all kind of work out. He's just more of a straight line athlete, and despite being so large, he's still not that great of a contested receiver. I think he's more of the blocker, the straight line running the mud, not the change of direction guy. I just don't think he offers that much upside.
You were the
Tip
same,
is
weren't
in
you, Joe?
tip-top shape, though. Tip's in tip-top shape, man. He's cut up,
Yeah.
man. He's chiseled.
You were in the same boat with this, right, Joe?
Yeah, and I've seen Blaine Corum going down here as well. I have no interest in him either. So I love to see those guys go that we don't want at all. I will touch on some of you talked about. Are these 3 picks? Are they immediate players? Are they role play? I don't think Mims comes in right away and starts. Obviously, they signed Trent Brown, but Trent Brown hasn't finished the season about 3 times in his entire career.
Right.
If we expect him to play 60% of the snaps, I think we're doing pretty well there in 60% of the games. And so Mims will play at some point. And how many times, 2021, 2022, did we get to the playoffs and the depth of this offensive line reared its head? And instead, you're plugging in Amarius Mims, which is great. And you would like to do that. Chris Jenkins will play and be probably D tackle number 3, which was Zach Carter last year. It could be anywhere upwards of 400 to 500 snaps. He will be a rotational piece. I think Jermaine Burton could win that slot job and at the very least be a weapon that they rotate in and give them something different than Mike Gesicki in the slot, different than Charlie Jones in the slot or wherever else they feel they can play in there. And B, have some inside-outside versatility. You want to get Jamar Chase in the slot? You can, because Burton can play outside as well. But like upside, I think Burton's kind of like a wide receiver 3 career kind of guy. You know what he reminds me of is a round 3 pick here is maybe a little bit of Chris Henry, different body types, but like what you're picking at that spot, I could see him making a lot of plays, being a fan favorite, but never really maximizing his potential.
I look at the first 3 picks just like the 8 picks last year. Last year, all 8 picks made the team, and they had a role, and then they expanded on that role. I can see the same thing happening. I'm not saying they're going to be 3 starters from day one, but I'm saying they're going to have a role. And potentially as they develop during the course of the season, that role may expand. And of course, it could be forced to expand because of injury. And you can never have enough depth at the positions that they've drafted these guys at.
Hey, Joe, can I want to jump on this just because you brought up Chris Henry. It was a conversation that happened this week as we were 2 days ago, as we were talking with people who were asking me some of my favorites within the locker room. And all you ever heard about Chris Henry was negative. You heard a lot of negative. And my wife jumped in and said, I loved that kid. That was a kid who came in, who had come from really troubled times. And, back in the day when we would have camp and we'd go to the same Applebee's after camp with everybody. And Chris Henry was sitting at a table. And my now junior at Ohio State daughter would come in, and Chris Henry would put her on his lap during dinner, put him on his shoulders, walk around, you felt the love with guys who struggled. And this may be one of those cases that you have a guy coming in who may have had some emotional baggage that goes through that and learning through that. And it's who you are put around that makes the difference.
You used an interesting word, kid.
He was a kid.
Chris Henry was a kid.
He was a kid.
It was an immaturity issue was his biggest downfall. And it seems like same scenario here. It's just a question of maturation, and sometimes it's just it's father time, and it's also what environment are you in?
The people you surround
what
yourself
kind of an
with.
impact
Yep.
are the people around you having on your life? And I do think that the locker room that has been put together by Zach Taylor and company is as good as I've ever seen. As good as I've ever seen, no doubt.
All right. Should I put them back on? Because it's time to give them away. Shall we go? It's time? It's time. Let's give them away.
Steelers take Roman Wilson, too, while we're at it. Our Michigan wide receiver.
It's good ad for them.
All right. So here are your Bengals Oakleys. If you got in on hashtag Super Bowl all caps, roll it. Our winner is Roger Swinney. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Roger.
Lap, you want to put those on?
Oh, man. Oh, there you got it.
Just to make sure that they have it lap worn. You're upside down. All right.
Too many hits, man. Too many hits.
Too many hits.
All right. Our next hashtag is the jungle. All caps. Hashtag the jungle. First Star Logistics second annual draft party. This will show that you participated in the second annual, and maybe next year you can be on site. Draft picks here. Hashtag. What did I just say the hashtag was? I can't even remember. I mean, holy cow, the jungle. I just said it like 14 seconds ago, and I can't remember. Hashtag the jungle for our next one. All right, Craig Locker's got it in. The jungle coming up. All right, Bengals pick at what? 97.
I've got a question for Joe. Joe, is this the spot where we maybe take a chance? Like, let's say we roll back around, right? Obviously, you got cornerback still on the board, right? I'm very curious to see if a Kyrie Jackson will be there. But is this a spot? Let's say if Jatavian Sanders is here. I know we keep talking about him. If he is here with our next pick in the third round, would you pull the trigger or would you say, nah, Bengals maybe should double up at offensive line? I know Logan's guy is Dominic Pooney, I believe. I'm just very curious. What would you say?
Uh-oh, we got to get Joe's audio on. Hang on, Joe.
Sorry, guys. That's
All
my
right,
So Jatavian Sanders isn't in my next 20 players available. I am lower on him. I'm probably in line with the league after that testing. I wouldn't at 97. I feel like there's only a few tight ends I would have drafted anyways in this class to really project as a tight end one, whether that's Brock Bowers, Ben Sinnott. I will take Jatavian Sanders, but I'm hoping like 115 he's still there, or a Jaheim Bell in the 5th round out of Florida State. It was a guy I really like. So I wouldn't be pressed to take Jatavian here.
I mean, I'm thinking the same thing. It's like, all right, address the corner because there is somewhat of a need there, obviously. Address that. And then you still have 6 more picks. You can take a tight end. You can double down on offensive and defensive line. You can take what it's. Don't panic. I mean, there's 6 picks after this next choice. They've only 3 picks into a 10-pick draft. It's like everybody on every round is like, oh, man, we can't screw this up. Ooh, there's plenty of time to address a lot of things. And I think the priority for me at this point in time would be one of the 4 that I thought before the draft, the corner position. You thinking that same? Or?
Yeah, no, I definitely like that. But again, I think you made a great point there where there's been runs at different positions. And before every pick, it's almost been like, oh, my gosh, panic, right? But then the pick happens and suddenly it's like we have a couple guys on the board we feel good about, and then you feel good about the pick. So in that same vein, I would definitely be looking at some of these guys that are falling a little bit and saying, hey, we're just going to do like we always compliment the Eagles on, or compliment the Ravens on, or these smart team builders who just say, hey, if you guys are going to let guys fall 30, 40, 50 picks past where we have them valued, we're going to go ahead and take them because we see value in having them and maybe not giving us 500 snaps this year, but can fill an immediate need, a future need within the next year or two. I think of edge. You have Cam Sample, Joseph Osai, Sam Hubbard, and Trey Hendrickson currently all slated to come off the books within the next 2 years. Same thing for interior offensive line, like Malik talked about, where Ted Karras, Alex Kappa, you want some competition for Cordell Volson. Like there's multiple spots right there where you definitely could add some depth and feel better about, even if necessarily they don't contribute this year.
Right.
Browns take Zach Zinter. They're building up on that offensive line.
How about Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
Every position group that the Bengals take, the Pittsburgh Steelers take the same one.
Literally.
It's like, what the hell? I mean, are they are they plugged into each other's draft room or what? I mean, it's like the AFC North. It's a copycat division, man. What's up?
Literally.
That's crazy.
Well,
what?
I mean, there's so much love in what the Bengals have done in 3 picks, and I don't remember. I did see a comment earlier that said I never felt like the 2020 draft is the last time I felt this good in real time about what the Bengals were doing. Is there something in a formula that has changed in the war room that makes it seem more obvious to Bengals fans these guys have figured this out? Or
I'll say this. I think Zach Taylor and company, and Joe, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong. I think Zach Taylor and company got a bad rap, obviously, for their first draft here in Cincinnati. They started the process very, very late. One of the first moves they made where they extended Preston Brown. That move didn't work out. They reached on a couple of guys in the draft, and I think somehow people thought that maybe this regime wasn't that good at drafting. I really believe Zach Taylor and Duke Tobin are really connected at the hip on what it is that they want to do. And it's kind of hard to fairly judge Zach Taylor and company because of where we have been drafting lately, whether it be the first overall pick or the 5th overall pick, right, with Jamar Chase. And those were easier picks for the Bengals to make, right? But I really feel like this draft right here is a full circle moment. It's like Zach Taylor's entire vision from the culture, taking chances on guys at the right time, taking best player available that they perceive. This is what it's all about. This draft right here to me is a signature draft for the Zach Taylor era.
I think that you look at this organization is unique in that it has the coach's input significantly more so than other organizations around the league. And sometimes that takes a little time to congeal as such.
And trust to develop.
Right. Trust is a big deal. And the fact is continuity and consistency. The staff has not rolled over in big numbers on a year-to-year basis. The scouting department, it's the same guys. And consistency of performance is over and over and over mastering the mundane. Putting together a draft board is a year-long process, and they've got it down to a science now. The same guys working together for more than a handful of years, 5-6 years. Not only in the personnel department with Duke Tobin, but the coaches that are contributing. All these people could complete each other's sentences. It's like they know what they're thinking before they go to the front of the room and give their pitch and dissertation on a player. And when you can have, it's almost a unanimous decision on everything that these guys are talking about because they know I'm going to eliminate that player. I'm not even going to bring that up because I know what everybody thinks already. Absolutely. I already have an idea. And man, it makes it a lot easier. It cuts through a big part of the workload. It's like you're not just throwing darts at a board,
Joe, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the 2020 draft is definitely, when you pick number 1, it makes it easy, right? You get the guys at the top of each round and you feel good about it. And then the 2021 happened where you get the Jamar Chase easy pick. And then the Jackson Carman pick really threw everyone through a loop. Everything we've heard since that pick happened and how that worked out is that's not the process you want to have throughout the draft. But they were able to recover from that. I think Joseph Osai was a fine pick for the 3rd round. Wish he would stay healthy. I think he could help this team in a lot of ways. But I think right now we're kind of down on the Dax Hill thing and how that hasn't worked out. He's a really strong prospect. They should have been able, if they're so conjoined at the hip, or if the division is so strong, you shouldn't have been misplaying him at a position that he really needed time and development at, and putting him at free safety so quickly without getting him snaps there while like a Jesse Bates was in the room or a Von Bell was in the room. So they've had their missteps, but I'm hoping with this one so far, There's a lot of picks still to go. They've only spent 3 out of their 10. There's a lot of players you could still pull from this and really turn this draft from what I think is probably a B draft into a much stronger draft if they nail it.
What do you guys think about this? First pick of the draft, like you say, Joe. I mean, first pick every round, man, it's, pretty relatively easy. When you're picking at the end of each round, like Kansas City has done, now you get first dibs on guys that slid. Who's at the end of the first round, the slider that, man, I'm going to take him before he slides to the second round. I honestly believe that the last few picks of the draft aren't necessarily as easy as but when you're in the middle, like the Bengals, a 500 team, it's like, is this real? Why is this guy sliding? And you're at the point where the beginning of the slide happens, not the end of the slide. And should I join in and add to the slide, or should I end the slide? I just think that where you draft, in the round has an impact on final outcome.
Okay, I'm piqued by your comment, Joe, first before I go to my next giveaway, which is probably a B draft. We feel all this love, and you go, okay, we've got a lot of picks left. We're probably at a B draft. Why are we at a B draft?
I don't think they've gotten any extreme value yet. I think value is a big thing. Like, I think Marius Mims was projected to be around the 18th pick for the longest time. I think that was a very common slot from between 15 and maybe 22 or so. So it's not like you got great. I mean, you get the guy who's supposed to be there. That's fine. And then round 2, Chris Jenkins was about 54th on the consensus board. You get him at 49. So you're not getting the guys that are falling. Not that you have to, but when you do grade drafts, you think about the guys that fall the value picks. I brought up the 2012 draft before. Marvin Jones was the 40th player on my board. You get him in the 5th round. George Iloka was the 48th on my board. You get him in the 5th round. So those are where I'm like, all right, that's how you get to an A draft. And it's just one man's opinion. Who am I? But when I see it and you just line up exactly where the guys are ranked, that's fine. That's fair value. That's a B.
Who's Joe Goodberry? Who's Joe Goodberry?
But Joe, I think what you're talking about is it goes in line with when you're picking in the middle of the draft. That's what you're looking at. It's like at the end of the draft, you can clean up other people's mistakes. But when you're in the middle of the draft, you might be contributing somewhat potentially if you're not cleaning it up soon enough.
I got 3 shirts to give away for the jungle. Oh my gosh. I just got a bonus.
5.
We have 5
We got a
shirts to
fistful.
give away. All right.
Fistful.
So we're gonna roll a little bit and let her roll. This is your second annual draft T-shirt.
Your first, second annual. I like
your
it.
first, second annual T-shirt draft. All right, and our winner is DK Apparel LLC. Congratulations, we got a business winner.
How about an apparel guy wins a T-shirt? That's
I
apropos.
love it. That's none. That's one. I just said that's none. That's hard to do, but let's go to number 2. Here's our next one. Roll them. Maybe roll them. Technical difficulties on the Wheel of Fortune.
Well, we have close to 1,500 people in the chat, man. We want to thank you guys so much for tuning in to this, man. On a Friday night, you guys can be doing anything. You're hanging out with us. We love it.
Friday during the day. Are you guys all retirees? You're on vacation? What's the deal,
Frederick
bro? What's the happening?
Rancy. I probably butchered that, Frederick, but you're a winner. You're winner number 2. Our winner number 3, as we continue to try and play the wheel. And we're adjusting on the side. All right. And our 3rd winner is Kevin Hernandez.
Keith's brother.
There you go. Winner number 3. We got 2 more to go. Winner number 4. Roll the wheel. Quiz Guy 66's channel.
I like it.
Congratulations. You don't get that very often. Oh. And our winner number 5.
Did I see Jeffrey chuckle?
Let's see if Jeffrey can get lucky. He's going to be mad that you mentioned him and didn't get him. Nick Num. All right, Nick. Those are our 5 winners. All right. Is this our last hashtag? Our last hashtag for a prize that we have yet to announce. Do we want to announce the prize? Hold it.
Oh, man.
Oh, my goodness.
You gave me, this is it.
Oh
is
my
your-
goodness.
This is your summer climax, Dave.
How about it?
A Bengals golf bag.
Nice.
All right,
Wow.
man.
Houday on
Somebody's
the back.
somebody's gonna wear some.
Time to tee
That
it
is
up.
nice. Yeah.
What did we say? First Star Logistics? First Star Logistics, all caps, hashtag. You guys.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realize self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
What's up, everybody? Dave Lapham here. Proud to have played for the Cincinnati Bengals for 10 seasons. Also proud to have finished my 38th season in the broadcast booth. So it's been a lot of fun, and appreciate the Cincinnati Bengals for giving me that great opportunity. Also, want to thank First Star Logistics for giving me the opportunity to be part of the second annual Bengals Draft Party that you're taking part in here. I hope you're enjoying it. We really like doing this. We really love your feedback. I hope you like communicating with us. Also, another way you can catch us is In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. And we'll post 2 or 3 things every single week, interviews with Bengals players, coaches, scouts, broadcasters around the National Football League, big picture National Football League stuff in general, as well as Major League Baseball and other sports. So you can catch that on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcast. We'll look forward to seeing you then.
All right. We've had some buffering issues, so we want to make sure we present it again. Thank you, Dave, for giving us that break and talking in the break. Here's your Bengals bag, our last gift to close out the night before the Bengals pick at number 97. Hashtag First Star Logistics, all caps. Do the hashtag, do the all caps, do the First Star Logistics, who have been spectacular in our new studio. Next year, you all, 1,500 of you or so, you're all going to be here in the building, and we're going to do this 3rd annual draft. So we'll be picking as we get ready for the Bengals to pick in 97. All right. Have we gone through the list?
So the Green Bay Packers just took another running back, and Marshawn Lloyd, a guy that Daniel was very high on. I think he had him as his favorite. He was his favorite running back in this draft class. We saw a safety go off the board. So man, what's going on with Troy Franklin? What's going on with Javon Baker?
Yeah.
Why are these guys, Joe, talk to me. Why are these guys falling? What are we not, what's going on?
Hey, I'm with you. I don't know, but I wouldn't be against doubling up at the position either. I think you have an open slot position here, but at the same time, you could have a wide receiver 2 position open, right? Like in a year, or if T. Higgins is holding out in camp, you can add to that room. And so I wouldn't be against it at all, but I do think the Bengals may go nose tackle and try and get the second one off the board with McKinley Jackson. I would also, Dave's saying good for the running backs. You know what? I'd be interested in Jalen Wright, Audric Estime. I think we're getting in that range. I'd love to get a Jalen Wright in this backfield.
Can I ask you about a guy? I don't know if he went off the board yet, and you guys can let me know if he did. I don't know if he has so far, but Christian Mahoney. I know that's a guy that Evan has been high on, guard out of Boston. I think we talked about him in one of our last mock draft war rooms. How would you feel about him being the pick here, man? He grades pretty high. But he would also solve the interior of the line, giving us more depth at that position.
Yeah, he may be the highest guy left. This is Christian Mahogany from Boston College. He'll also be a 24-year-old rookie. We're run into those guys. The COVID years are striking, but the interior offensive line class was older than normal. 92 on the consensus big board, so getting him at 97 would be fine. You got a guy with decent size and length that really, like PFF really liked him, but his testing put him above, I think, what we thought was maybe a 4th, 5th round pick, and put him maybe into the end of the 3rd round range. He really tested like an elite athlete. And so, yeah, I'm not against interior offensive line and continuing to build the trenches.
Evan's guy just went off the board. Elijah Jones. He's went
Oh,
off the
wow.
board.
Hey, I might be onto something.
With the Arizona. You might be cooking with grease, right? I might be doing something here, man.
I do want to touch on Christian Mahogany. Like Joe said, the testing there was, 93rd percentile vertical, 86th percentile broad, and those are good explosion numbers. And broad jump is one of those that correlates pretty well with success on the interior line. So does 3-cone and shuttle, which were also fairly decent scores for him, at least. RAS ended up being a 9.63, and his run blocking grade was 15th out of 113 guards, and his pass blocking grade on true pass sets, which we keep emphasizing how important it is to remove the screens and the play action and the 3-man rushes from a lot of these college offenses when you're trying to evaluate these guys for what you can do in the NFL. And he was 7th out of 109 guards in that pass blocking grade on those true pass sets. So I feel like you've got a guy who is an athlete, who has a proven track record both in the run game and in the passing game on actual NFL dropbacks and concepts on these deeper drops. I feel like that would be a great value here, or maybe even in the 4th.
What do you guys think of Pooney out of Kansas?
He just went.
He did just go?
Yeah, he did just go.
49ers. He's got a chance to end up being their starting right tackle, or maybe just maybe a guard. But
I tell you, I like that kid. Rock chalk Jayhawks, baby.
All right, we're in at 91. 6 picks left before we go. Haven't seen a whole lot of trends in the last 25 picks. We've had some here and there, but nothing on straight runs.
Nothing of straight runs just yet.
Wow. Elijah Jones at 90, man. I'm sorry. I just can't get over that. He was a projected like 5th or 6th round pick, man. They must really like him for some reason.
But one thing about this draft that I've realized, Ev, and we just can't understand it. This is why we watch, and this is why we cover, and this is why we love covering it, right? Because there's no rhyme or reason. You may value a guy super extremely high on your board, and other teams might think he's undraftable.
Just takes one.
It just takes one. It takes one team to believe in you. And Joe, you've been doing this, for much longer than me, much longer than I've even been on the Twitter app, man. I'm sure you've seen some wild things, but where would you say this draft ranks in terms of, I guess, craziness?
From a league-wide standpoint, I think that offensive run in the first round was weird, man. I mean, you don't do that. That is, I kept thinking like, oh, these DNs are going to go, the corners are going to go.
Right.
Murphy could have went top 10, and I wouldn't have been shocked at all.
Yeah.
And it just kept going. Quarterback, wide receiver, offensive line.
It was funny.
I was getting nervous for a second there. I'm like, man, I don't know who's going to be there left for the Bengals. We may have to go corner or something in this range. And then Mims was still there. But yeah, I think overall, the craziness may not happen until about right now. Dave's talked about it a couple of times. Difference between pick 70 and 175, probably not big of a difference. And we're at that range now for what the top 70 guys, most of them are gone, because we've had some reaches. We've had some guys that I thought were day 3 picks already going off the board. So once that top 70 really clears out, man, I think it could be chaos, because the Bills GM was on talking, said they had 150 players that they had with draftable grades go back to college this year. That'll really affect the day 3 and who gets picked and how they order these guys.
Let me ask you about another Newton. Didn't go for the interior defensive lineman. What about the cornerback from TCU?
Josh Newton. Yeah, Josh Newton. I'm not super high on him. To me, he comes out as a guy I think would be a depth piece, would be a fine player. I feel like you're bringing him up because you got a text over there, Dave. You getting a hint on us that we should
that's my wife. My wife wants to know. Coming home? My wife wants to know. Yeah, she said you'd be home by 10. What's going on? Joe's talking too much.
No, I have a question actually, Joe.
Okay.
I know that the Bengals coaching staff went to UCLA's pro day, and a lot of people thought it might have been for Latu showing interest in him. But there's another guy, and I'm talking about him because I stayed up last night watching a lot of film on this guy. And every single time you turn on the tape, this guy just flashed, and that's Gabriel Murphy. What do you think about him? He graded out extremely high. What would you feel? I mean, would you feel comfortable if the Bengals were to take edge here? I know it's a crowded room, but you can never have enough pass rushers.
Sure.
This theme of this draft is, obviously building in the trenches to some degree, obviously, and also getting your playmakers when you can. But Gabriel Murphy to me would be a home run pick here. Tell me why I'm wrong or if I'm right.
No, I had him in my final mock draft. I had him going to the Bengals at 115. So we're in the range of whether it's 97 or 115. And you're talking about when you watch the film, everyone's focused on Latu and all his moves and the way he looks, right, and wins. But then you're like, who's that guy ripping off the edge on the other side? Like, oh my God. He's just his first step, and the way he gets around so quickly and so fast. It's like, yeah. And there's twins over there, Grayson Murphy and Gabriel Murphy for UCLA. And that they just send waves of pass rushers at you with that trio. But yeah, Gabe's got a lot of high end like win rate, pass rush win rates, and true pass set win rates. I mean, he's got moves on him plus some crazy speed off the line.
All right. Do we go back to talk about Sanders, who's still sitting there that you guys were talking about at 80, and here we are at 97, and he's still not there?
I'll tell you what, the 40 time, was his tape that bad? I mean, maybe he had a crappy day running. You can have bad days. I remember, very vividly running 0.5 of a second better from one week to the next. Different coaches have different reaction and reflexes to the stopwatches. I mean, I don't know. To me, 40 times to have that big of an impact because of running a 40-yard dash, put on the tape. Is the guy a football player, man? Tim Crumry's 40 time was on a calendar. But it's not obviously that important in terms of when you're playing in the interior, you're playing in a closet. But I mean, sometimes some of this stuff, to me, it's like, put on the tape. What's the tape tell you? Is the guy a football player or not? We're not talking about Olympic athletes. We're not talking about decathletes. We're talking about put on shoulder pads and helmets. And are you a football player, not a track athlete?
It wouldn't shock me. The Ravens pick is coming up here. We know the Ravens. If we know anything about the Ravens the last couple of years, they will just keep drafting tight ends after tight end after tight end. And this would feel like a Ravens pick where people would be like, the Ravens do it again. They draft the tight end that people were talking about going in the second round, and they take a chance on him, obviously, because they like the tape. They trust their analysis. Man, would they do that? Would they break the hearts of football fans out there, and will they take Jatavion Sanders? I think it'd be great value for them at this point. And it's a move I could see them making, obviously.
Somebody's battery's getting low here on this.
Hey Joe, I got a question for you, man. And as an analytics guy, I generally don't advocate for running back, right? But man, I'm sitting here looking at Jalen Wright, and I'm wondering. He's still on the board. Marshawn Lloyd's going in front of him. And I look at Wright's production. He's got the home run threat speed with a 4.38 40. He's still 5'10 and a half, 210, but first in yards per attempt was 7.4 yards per attempt, 4.3 yards after contact per attempt, and 6th out of 43 running backs in elusive rating and forcing these missed tackles. So I feel like he was the second best running back behind Jonathan Brooks. Do you agree? And do you think he would be worth a look here?
Yeah, and when he did his testing, when you go back to his film, he's 20 years old. He just turned 21. Same with Jatavion Sanders, actually, too. He just turned 21. When he did that testing, he was 20. Sometimes you see these guys that don't test as well, and you look back, you're like, oh, yeah, because he was still super young. Yeah, they're not mature yet. Tyler Boyd was the same way.
Yeah.
So sometimes they still need to get into their bodies still. But Jalen Wright, when you watch him, he faced a lot of light boxes, and let's say the Bengals do too. And what happens is you need to split those safeties. You need to beat both safeties. It's a little bit different. It's a prerequisite to have the speed and home run ability. And you watch Jalen Wright, and you're like, okay, makes the linebacker miss. Both safeties can't even touch him. They can't get close to him. He just absolutely rips it up downfield and just long run after long run after long run. I would be into it.
I have a question for you, Joe, actually. Cedric Van Pran, right? He's a center that is still here. I forgot who trained with him or who he trained with, but he said he's the best center that he's ever, most polished, most ready center that he's ever had. And he's still here, at this pick. I want to hear what your thoughts are on Cedric Van Pran. Do you see value in potentially taking him here at this spot?
Yeah, so it's the center out of Georgia. He's still only 22 years old, which is a lot of these guys are older in this class. 2-time captain, which I think the Bengals would enjoy. On the consensus board, he's ranked 103, so we're in that range again. You want to pick him at 97. He's a little bit light at 298. He's under 300, but that happens at center. That's not a big issue. He does have some length issues, 31-inch arms. But overall, I think anytime you're getting a Georgia product, you're typically getting a guy who knows what he's doing, a little bit more advanced, has worked around in a professional like atmosphere. To me, he looks like a potential capable starter. I don't know if he has the upside of a very good center. Like, to me in this class, I still like Tanner Bortolini if he's still there, Bo Limmer. You know who else I like is Matt Lee from Miami, if I can get him in the 4th, 5th round or so. Really good pass protector. So I don't have to have Cedric Van Pran here. I think the center depth in this class is strong.
Hey guys, Chris Abrams Drain, is he gone at corner? He's already went. What's that?
Yep.
I was just uh-huhing to the fact that I do like him. I think, as Joe mentioned a little bit earlier, that he probably gets kind of relegated to that slot, but that's a guy who has great ball production. He was 9th out of 153 corners in forced incompletion rate, 17th in passer rating when targeted, 11 pass breakups, and 4 interceptions with 4.44 speed. I definitely think that's a guy who's interesting. I would just love to see a little bit more depth at that outside corner spot. In the last, I think, 3 seasons, the backup boundary corner has played over a total of 2,500 snaps. It's been 500, 1,000, 1,000. So, and also after research has come out that cornerback is the 3rd most injured position outside of wide receiver and tight end, I believe, on top of the fact that you're constantly putting 3 corners out there and these guys are running and covering for 50, 60 snaps a game. I think it's really, really important to get some depth there besides DJ Ivy at the moment.
The Ravens took Penn State edge rusher Adisa Isaac at 93.
Okay. Surprise you?
No, this is the Ravens MO. This is what they do. They will draft a guy, who they view as best player available. They will always look to add to the pass rush department. Good pick for them. I think this is a good pick for him. Joe, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not super high. The Penn State guys seem to not produce. They already did this with Jason Oweh, right? And then Chop Robinson had the same issues. Adisa Isaac, while flashed a whole bunch. To me, we're talking about these guys at 247 pounds at 6'4". That's pretty lean. It's fine. It's a fine late 3rd round pick, but I'm not expecting him to be some secret superstar.
2 more picks until the Bengals pick, guys. Any last minute predictions? Want to do? Maybe we do it again. You guys have been on fire tonight, Lap and Evan. I'm very curious to hear what who your predictions are.
I'm just thinking that the cornerback, if there's a cornerback in the range at 97, I think they go with that guy. I think that would be a tiebreaker. Now, they're going to probably hit, just like every round in this draft, there's enough depth where they're going to have more than one prospect that they can evaluate. And like you said, Joe, I mean, if it's like 3 or 4 picks either way, it's like that's in the ballpark. We're talking close to the 100th pick. So, that's a very small margin there. So it's, I would personally like to see them address that cornerback position.
I'm kind of right there with you. I think this is kind of a nice spot for corner. I obviously have said that I'm a fan of Kyrie Jackson, obviously a little bit of an older prospect.
Right.
I do still think that you can get a guy, if they prefer a guy like a Cam Hart, a little bit later, maybe next round even, and
4th
that would
round,
fit a little bit more of their kind of size speed profile a little bit, and also younger than obviously 25-year-old going to be Kyrie Jackson. So I could feel good about either way. I have this in my Twitter bio, and Malik knows I always say this: you can't have enough corners, and even when you think you have enough, you need more.
Right.
So are you going Jackson, Evan?
I feel like this value is appropriate. I'm willing to plant my flag for my guy. I would feel good about it here.
All right, I'll go
What
to
do
you,
you guys-
Joe. Who's your?
So we haven't gotten a curveball yet, right? So far, it's gone pretty much exactly what we expect. Trenches, wide receiver. I think, just typically you don't go straight for need. It just doesn't always line up that way. Is that a linebacker, right? Do we see like a Cedric Gray out of North Carolina, a guy they spent a lot of time with? The best player available probably is Peyton Wilson, the linebacker at NC State, even though, he's had 12 surgeries in his college career. So maybe that's why he's still here. I'm going to go with my official pick, though. The curveball is going back to defensive tackle, taking a nose tackle in McKinley Jackson out of Texas A&M.
This early. Okay. Interesting.
You know what? I'm always weary to go against Joe because Joe, a lot like me, is plugged into some aspects. And, I don't know, but I'm going to go different route. I'm going to trust what I talked to Duke Tobin about at the combine. And he said he didn't want a revolving door at tight end. If he makes it here, you know what? I'll say the Bengals either go corner or I think the Bengals take a chance on Jatavian Sanders if he's there. That's what I think.
No, you said an if or. Who are you going with?
just for the hell of it, give me Jatavian Sanders.
Okay,
That's who I
you're
think
going
the Bengals
Sanders.
go. That's who I think the Bengals.
All
If
right.
he's there, I think the Bengals draft Jatavian Sanders.
Okay, so we got Evan at Jackson.
That's a pressure pick.
We got another Jackson, a McKinley Jackson with Joe, and Malik says Sanders. Who you got, Lap?
I'm going with Joe. I'm going Texas.
Okay.
I'm going McKinley Jackson this is where he is slotted. I mean, cornerbacks that are still on the board that we're talking about now, I have out of the third round. McKinley Jackson, all the mocks that I've accumulated and stuff, McKinley Jackson's still a solid third round pick. McKinley Jackson still fits a need, and if you got a guy that, hey, on my board, this guy had rated higher than the cornerbacks that are left.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any issue doing that necessarily. I mean, I think, and he's more of the thicker bodied dude,
Okay. And we got Buffalo's pick in at 95, so we're 2 away at this point.
Yeah.
Joe already said we've got. Is there anything that takes you, Joe, out of a B grade for our day 2? I mean, there's nothing really at this point that really shocks the world, right?
No. The nose tackle pick is tough because we know, I like to rely on the tape. And actually, if it's McKinley Jackson, I had a higher tape grade on him than I did Chris Jenkins. So like that, you would think I would like it. But the nose tackles, production scores, testing, everything you use, they don't come out high when you plug them into the formula because they tend to be a lottery ticket type of pick. A lot of these guys don't pan out at nose. There's not a lot of data to support what you see on tape to really embolden what you think you see. Because let's be honest, the tape lies to us all the time. Sometimes I've had a couple cocktails before I watch the guy on tape, and I wake up the next morning and be like, yeah, it's a third round pick. But sometimes I got to come back later. But McKinley Jackson be a fun player. It doesn't make it an A, doesn't move it up any higher for me. If they were to go off the rails and go with a Peyton Wilson or a Troy Franklin, the guys that I think are the best available on the board, that could get me to an A- or a B+ and bump me up and say, because that's my own personal grade. The only thing that will really drop it is going completely off the rails and be like, who is this guy? Which happens once in a while.
The Bills just took Dwayne Carter, by the way.
Oh man, I like
Bills just took
Dwayne.
Dwayne Carter.
You know what I like about him though, Joe, is I was talking earlier about hands. This dude has violent hands, man. He is a hands king, and he's got a motor. He finishes every play. I just think that he's a guy that other teammates, he's going to feed off the energy of his teammates. They're going to feed off of his energy. I just think he's got long arms for a guy his height. I mean, his measurables, his arm length is almost 34 inches. His wingspan's over 80 inches, and the dude is 6'1" and a half. I mean, that's he can tie his shoes without bending over.
Scratch his ankle standing up, as they
Exactly.
say. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, 326 too. So you're talking about nose tackle body type. Yeah. So 6'1"
and a half-inch frame. That that's a fire hydrant that can.
That's square.
Yep, and he got good lateral quickness, good lateral movement. I mean, it's they need to get better inside. Let's face it, DJ Reader was a monster, and they got to figure out. And DJ was in a rotation. There's no, but when he was in there, he was impact. So you're going to get as many potential impact guys in the rotation, as you possibly can. I wouldn't have a problem. I was hoping a better corner may have survived to this point, but I think this guy is a better prospect than a lot of the corners that are still available. We'll see.
Okay. Jaguars pick is in at 96, so we are right on the precipice.
I think it's interesting that we see a lot of these tight ends here too. Cade Stover, Jared Wiley, even Theo Johnson that I know some people were interested in. And I feel like that's the value of waiting on tight end right here instead of taking Sanders, when Sanders, who is expected to be second, early third round pick maybe, is still here. But like Joe said, I love taking the chances on guys like Jaheim Bell, like Theo Johnson, because we see so often that tight end is just such a difficult position to project from college to the NFL because how you're used and these roles are just not as defined, and a lot of these guys don't even get as many targets as you'd like them to get a good clean evaluation. So a lot of times it seemed that the best thing you can do is just pick some of the most athletic tight ends you can find in rounds 3, 4, and 5, and that has the best hit rate of anything that you can look at.
I just remember when the Bengals drafted Crumry, Dick Modulewski said, yeah, this guy, is he a world-class athlete? No. But this guy is one tough SOB. And you know what? You start by building from the inside out, damn it. Right over the ball. You got to stop right over the ball. I mean, if they're going to run a straight line right up your butt instead of what he really said, you got problems. And so I would not have an issue with them beefing up the interior like we're talking about. I would not have an issue with that at all.
Hey, if they want to go with my guy Christian Mahogany, hey, yeah, I think he was 97th percentile on run blocking and gap schemes, if I'm not mistaken. I might be inflating that just a little bit, but he was definitely close to it.
Mahogany, that's a hard surface piece of wood there now.
97th percentile.
That guy's put together. I mean, mahogany's high caliber wood.
That's good stuff.
Oh, man. We've got almost 1,700
when the wood
people
hits the
in
gap,
this live,
right,
man.
Dave?
This is
What's
great.
that?
When the wood hits the gap, right?
When the wood hits the gap, man, I'm telling you.
What time are we at?
When the rubber meets the road, the wood hits the gap. How about
11:10, and we got 1,700 people with us, huh?
Yeah, man. You guys are awesome.
Yeah.
I can't believe you guys aren't sleeping. I'm about ready to.
This is the time definitely to say a huge thanks to Kevin B, right?
Absolutely.
If you guys can do us a huge favor and give this video a like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, we greatly appreciate it. You subscribe to the First Star Media Group, you can keep up to date with Bengals on the Brain with Joe Goodberry, In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, and obviously State of the Jungle. There's so much content that goes out on a weekly basis. You guys do a fantastic job.
Well, you see, Dave is the GOAT.
Literally, he is. He literally is the GOAT. And guys, our coverage.
Is that what that is? That little animal?
Yes. Our coverage doesn't stop after the draft. Our coverage keeps going on, so we'll be there to get you guys through the off season and get you guys up to speed for the Bengals hopefully making a Super Bowl run this year.
Jags took a corner, Jerry and Jones.
Jerry and Jones.
That's a good pick here.
Okay, all right, you guys hanging with your picks?
Yeah, I'm sticking with my picks, man.
I wouldn't be shocked if they took a corner, but I think value-wise, I think they.
Interior defensive line and offensive line are staring at you real hard right now. You can just take a good player that can either compete or start for you right now, or just give you at least a good amount of rotational
that was quick. The pick
snaps.
is in for the Bengals already.
Ooh,
what's that? It's already in.
It says the Bengals
pick's already in. They're quick on. They've been quick on the trigger the last two picks.
They know who they want.
Hey, I respect it.
All right. Well, this is it. It's going to be very sad, but this is drawing us to a close because we're about to give away the Bengals golf bag as well to close out the night.
For a little bit longer.
You do? All right. Joe, everything good in Buffalo? Just making sure?
Yeah. I mean, it's Buffalo, right?
I tell you what, that bag on the golf course, they're going to see you coming, man.
Yeah, they will.
It's like lit up. It's like fluorescent.
It's almost criminal that you put that on a golf cart. You probably have to walk with that bag so everybody sees it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, I think a lot of people will be big fans of that. You might get a couple free beers from it.
I like it. I like
Zach
that.
Taylor may see it and buy you a drink or lunch, right?
There you go.
All right, Hush, back up for the pick. And
McKinley
Jackson.
Jackson.
You
How
did it
about it?
again.
How about it?
You did
How about it,
again.
JoJo?
Wow.
How about that?
Okay.
I'm on to you, Joe Goodberry.
I don't know anything. Listen, I just know I follow this team very closely. All right.
But I'll tell you what, man, you talk about a zero technique, guy that can go in over the nose and, man, I tell you, he stays
He's
square.
slippery.
Yeah.
He's slippery for a big guy. Yeah.
He's got some athletic ability now. He's not a stiff at all. He can change direction, good lateral movement.
Yeah,
Texas A&M, and he's the big rivalry game. He's kicking tail and taking names, man.
They're balancing their character a little bit. You do the Jermaine Burton, and like I said, when we were at 80, you might want to take the two-time captain in McKinley Jackson. So maybe they're balancing that out just a bit. But his highlights and his splash plays are really nice. You see that power, that first step quickness with that power, and it really stresses out guards because he gets under them, plays with natural leverage. Anytime you're 6'1", you get that natural leverage underneath these guys, and you got that power behind you. You can walk these guys backwards.
What I just saw there after he made a tackle for loss, get up and show the energy and the enthusiasm, man, that stuff's contagious, and it's not phony. That's the thing is, starting with Mims, the guy's he's real. I mean, he's legit. That's the way he is. It's not any kind of a show. The guy's, Mims, high character guy. This guy's a high character guy, two-time captain.
Yeah, I love the idea of a two-time
Oh,
captain.
Yeah.
At your fourth pick in the draft, you got a two-time captain with that kind of energy.
Yep.
All right. Grade it, Joe. We stay at a B for the day, for the 2 days?
if I'm being honest, I'm not very high on this pick. So while I was pumping up McKinley Jackson a little bit, I understood why they would go in that direction and want to take the second nose tackle in this class. When we started this process in January, I think a lot of people thought third round for McKinley Jackson. But as the process went on, it died off a little bit. I think Dane Brugler from The Athletic had him as a 6th, 7th rounder at the end of the process. Mm-hmm. So the Bengals are saying, you know what? Well, this is the guy we wanted. This is the guy we identified, and we're going to take. It's just, I use a lot of data in my projections, and there's nothing in there that says he's probably going to be a great player. Hey, maybe he's going to be a great rundown pain in the butt for offensive linemen. But other than that, I don't have much here to be hopeful about.
All right, gentlemen. Evan, you want to grade?
Yeah, I guess I'll go with a C. I think it's tough because nose tackle, while important, is not necessarily one that you have to attack and try and get. I feel like there are other alternatives that you could attack in later rounds. And like we talked about, there's a handful of guys at other positions that have kind of fallen into the lap here. I know consistency can kind of be an issue here, and we see that with guys in college. And sometimes, when it's your full-time job and you don't have to worry about everything else and you can just focus on football and you're being paid lots of money to do it, sometimes there's a little bit more motivation there. And sometimes that can be a coaching thing or a disinterest thing or something that's going on within the locker room or between him and the coaching staff. But 34 run stops since 2022, which was 3rd among SEC defensive tackles, was a little concerned that I didn't see a little bit of a higher run stop rate, but that could be contributing to the inconsistent effort sometimes that Joe was talking about there. And if you can get some things cleaned up, it's never encouraging to see such a large human being get moved on double teams. You don't want to see these guys see ground. And so every once in a while, his pad level might come up a little bit, and you do see that. But again, these are correctable things, right? But the tools are there. The hands, the slippery nature, and just the overall size that he brings to the table. I do think there is upside with it. I just don't know that you had to take it this early with these other guys here.
All right. Do we want to give away the golf bag, guys? I think it's time. All right. We appreciate all of you who have participated, hung with us, been active listeners, active viewers. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate all of you. We really appreciate First Star Logistics, because they're blowing this thing out. So this is your golf bag for the summer. Good luck, everyone. And spin it.
Come on, Joe G.
And our golf bag winner is Gregory Jennison. Gregory, I hope you're a golfer, my man, because this is one heck of a prize. We've climaxed, Dave.
I'm telling you.
This is it.
It was about as enjoyable as I had hoped.
Yes. All right. Hey, Malik, I'm going to give Dave the last word. Take me through what was happened for the Bengals and where they are for the first 2 days.
I've liked what the Bengals have done. I would have obviously liked to see them potentially grab a corner there with that last pick in the 3rd round. But all in all, you got to be happy with how the Bengals draft has shaped up. Everything can't necessarily be perfect. That's the draft. These guys, we talked about it. You never know how a team values a guy versus another team. But all in all, I think you're happy. I really love the Jermaine Burton pick, man. Yeah. I'm head over heels right now because I raved about this guy, and I caught flack by a lot of people for saying that, but Jermaine Burton is going to be a difference maker for the Cincinnati Bengals. Believe me.
We will mark your words down right now. Dave, finish us up.
Yeah, I think that the cornerback position, they felt like we were talking about, it's deep enough to 150. They can address the cornerback position. They felt like the cornerbacks that were still there on their board that they worked so hard at had Jackson rated higher than the cornerbacks that were there. And it's like, all right, we still have 6 more picks. We're going to address the cornerback position. Let's not, reach. We don't feel like we need to. As far as an overall grade, I've seen too many drafts. I go incomplete. I mean, I don't care where the hell they were drafted. I'm like, not only the first year, I'm going to see where you are in the 3rd year, where you are in the 5th year. I mean, these guys basically, congratulations on a great college career. You position yourself to have a life-changing opportunity. Are you going to take advantage of it? Seen guys come in, look like Tarzan, play like Jane. Seen guys come in, this guy's got no chance, and he's a world beater. You just don't know. This whole thing is the most non-scientific thing in the world, but I do think that you have to start somewhere, and they go through the process of setting a board and stay true to that board, and see what happens.
Gentlemen, it is a pleasure. Kevin B., thank you for the honor of being able to sit to these guys. Malik, Dave, Evan, Joe.
Thanks,
really
Brad.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Brad.
It was such a pleasure. And for the crew behind the scenes that nobody gets to see, that put this together.
The offensive and defensive line over there.
Man.
That's what it is.
I mean, in
They're
very
the workers,
short
man.
time
The blue-collar workers.
You guys are fantastic. So we appreciate you. We're looking forward to filling this building next year. And we're looking forward to seeing what the Bengals do with these picks, because we got 6 more after this for the next few days.
Not even halfway there yet.
So for everybody here, I'm Brad Johansen. We appreciate you being with us. Thanks for staying on. Subscribe, punch the like button. We thank you once again. We'll see you next year.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.